The Line by Mohammed Perkins, prologue.
The Red Sea shimmered in the late afternoon sun, its waters a molten band of fire stretching to the horizon. Above it rose the Line, Saudi Arabia's audacious megaproject, a mirrored blade stabbing into the desert sky. At 200 meters wide and 170 kilometers long, its polished walls reflected everything: the sand, the sea, the sky. It was not just architecture, it was spectacle, a declaration that humanity could build perfection on an unforgiving wasteland.
Laila Al-Hakim stood at the edge of the crowd, her press badge warm against her chest, her fingers tightening around the strap of her camera. Everyone else seemed awestruck, cheering, clapping, capturing selfies with the glittering monolith behind them. But for Laila, awe mixed with unease. She had spent her career digging beneath glossy surfaces, and the Line gleamed a little too brightly. "Quite a sight, isn't it?" Tariq murmured beside her. Her colleague's eyes shone behind his thin glasses as he scanned the giant projection screens. "You're witnessing history, Laila, the future of cities." History, future, words thrown around like confetti. She wanted to believe it, but whispers had reached her desk weeks ago. Rumors of cost-cutting, ignored geological surveys, suppressed accident reports. Tonight was supposed to be a triumph, yet she could feel the fault lines beneath it, humming like a taut wire ready to snap. On stage, the Saudi crown prince lifted his hand. Cameras from a dozen nations swiveled to capture the gesture. Dignitaries lined the platform, their robes immaculate, their smiles polished. Fireworks waited in drones overhead, ready to paint the sky. "Citizens of the world," the crown prince began, his voice echoing through hidden speakers. "Today we stand at the dawn of a new civilization. The Line is more than a city, it is a promise. Zero emissions, infinite potential. Harmony between humanity and nature, a model for the centuries to come." Harmony. Laila wanted to laugh. She had seen the leaked reports of families displaced for construction, of Bedouin graves bulldozed without permission. She lifted her phone, recording as the cheers swelled around her. Then came the sound, faint at first, like the groan of a ship's hull, deep and resonant beneath their feet. Laila froze. The crowd murmured, confused. The crown prince continued speaking, unbothered, but a ripple of unease spread through the plaza. "Did you hear that?" she whispered to Tariq. He nodded, lips tight. "Underground." The groan became a rumble. The ground trembled. Wine glasses on banquet tables quivered, spilling red streaks across white linen. And then, with a sharp crack like thunder, the earth itself split open. Screams tore through the plaza. The immaculate marble beneath the audience fractured, a jagged seam racing toward the mirrored wall of the Line. Within seconds, the ground collapsed, swallowing rows of spectators in a roaring sinkhole. Dust exploded into the air as steel supports buckled. A whole section of the megastructure shuddered, groaned, and folded in on itself, vanishing into the abyss. No engineering flaw could look this precise. No accident could arrive on cue at the grand opening. Someone had planned this. "Move." Tariq grabbed her arm, pulling her as the crowd surged in panic. People shoved and clawed their way toward the exits, trampling those who fell. Dignitaries vanished into convoys of black cars already speeding away. Sirens wailed, drowning out human cries. Laila's chest constricted. She wanted to run, but her instincts screamed louder. Record everything. Document. Show the truth. She fumbled for a camera, raising it toward the collapsing facade. Her lens caught twisted bodies plunging into darkness, drones crashing like burning birds, and the impossible calm of one man in the chaos. He wore a charcoal suit, crisp despite the dust. While others screamed, he stood still, surveying the devastation with an almost clinical detachment. His eyes lifted, locking onto Laila's camera, and then he smiled, small, knowing, dangerous. "Tariq," she gasped, "do you see him?" Her colleague followed her gaze, brow furrowed. "Who the hell is that?" The suited man turned and strode away, vanishing into the mass of panicked bodies. Whoever he wasn't surprised. He knew. And if he knew, he was the thread that could unravel everything. The plaza dissolved into chaos. Riot police poured in, ordering people to disperse. Rescue workers fought to reach survivors at the pit's edge. Helicopters circled overhead. Cameras cut off the live broadcast, and state media replaced the feed with triumphant pre-recorded footage. The official story was already being rewritten, while dust still hung in the air. "We need to get out of here," Tariq shouted over the noise. Laila shook her head, still filming. No, this isn't an accident. Someone will try to bury it. We have to follow him. Her stomach knotted, fear clawing at her ribs, but she shoved it aside. This was why she had become a journalist. Not to write fluff, but to expose lies. The line had just collapsed, and with it, the mask of a kingdom. As she and Tariq slipped into the smoke-choked streets, sirens wailed and armored trucks roared past, sealing the exits. Somewhere ahead, the suited man disappeared into a waiting convoy. Laila tightened her grip on her phone. The world would call this a tragedy. She would call it what it was, sabotage, and she would risk everything to prove it. The truth was buried beneath the line, and tonight she had glimpsed it breaking through the surface.
By dawn, the official headlines would sing of an unforeseen geological accident, but for Laila Al-Hakim, the story was only beginning. Chapter 1: Ashes of Celebration.
Night clung to the desert like a shroud. Hours after the collapse, the mirrored walls of the line still loomed over the wreckage, fractured panels reflecting firelight from burning vehicles. Helicopters scoured the air, their searchlights sweeping across a city that had barely been born and was already bleeding. Laila sat hunched in the corner of a half-destroyed cafe, her camera still warm against her chest. Her throat ached from dust, her hair heavy with grit, but her mind refused to shut down. Every blink replayed the moment the earth split open, the suited man's smile, the faces disappearing into the sinkhole. They'll call it an accident, Tariq said, crouched opposite her. His glasses were cracked, his hands still shaking as he wiped them with a rag. Mark my words, by sunrise they'll have a press release blaming unstable soil. Of course they would. She had covered enough disasters to know the choreography. Deny, distract, spin. The truth was negotiable, but she had footage that wasn't. Her fingers itched to upload it, but the networks were down and she didn't trust the local servers. Outside the shattered glass walls, armored vehicles rumbled through the streets. Soldiers in black uniforms checked IDs, pushing back civilians who hadn't fled. Journalists had been corralled into buses, their equipment confiscated. Laila and Tariq had slipped away in the smoke, ducking into the ruined cafe as security swept the plaza. Tariq leaned forward. Tell me you recorded it. She hesitated. Trust was a slippery thing in her profession, even with friends. But Tariq had risked his life beside her, pulling her from the stampede. She nodded, unclipping her camera and playing back a few seconds. The crack of marble, the plunging sinkhole, and, most damning, the suited man, still as a statue while everyone else ran. Tariq's eyes widened. He's no ordinary bystander. Look at him, he's expecting it. Exactly, the smile haunted her. Not shock, not fear, recognition. Before she could respond, heavy boots clattered outside. Voices barked orders in Arabic, growing louder. Laila shoved the camera into her bag and gestured for silence. The cafe's broken window reflected the silhouettes of security men sweeping the street. They're searching for journalists, Tariq said. We can't stay here. Her heart pounded. If they found the footage, it would vanish into a vault, erased from history. She had chased stories across war zones and dictatorships, but this felt different, more dangerous. They slipped through the cafe's back door into a narrow alley, reeking of smoke and sewage. Sirens wailed somewhere distant, punctuated by the roar of collapsing steel. The desert wind carried fine dust that stung her eyes. Where are we going? Tariq asked. Anywhere but here. There's a press hub 2 kilometers west. If it hasn't been shut down, we can piggyback on their satellite uplink.
They moved quickly, weaving through panicked civilians. Families clutched each other, faces gray with fear. Vendors abandoned carts, piled with fruit now bruised and scattered. A child sobbed, clutching a broken toy as her mother pulled her away from soldiers shouting at the crowd.
Every instinct told Laila to stop, to help, but she had no luxury for that. If the truth wasn't captured and shared, these lives would be buried twice, once in rubble, once in silence.
The thought dragged her backward in memory to Cairo, 5 years earlier. She had exposed a chemical leak covered up by local authorities. Her story had saved villages downriver, but it had also earned her threats, surveillance, and a firebomb through her apartment window. Since then, she had lived like a ghost, moving apartments, changing numbers, trusting almost no one.
And yet here she was again, chasing shadows through another crumbling city, because someone had to. You're quiet, Tariq said as they ducked into another alley. Don't tell me you're already planning the headline. She almost smiled. Maybe something subtle, like world's most expensive sinkhole. He snorted, but the humor died quickly. They'll never let that story run here. The government will lock it down before sunrise. Even foreign outlets will hesitate. Too much oil money, too many investments tied up in this. They emerged onto a deserted boulevard lined with half-finished towers. Construction cranes loomed overhead like frozen giants. At the far end, floodlights bathed the husk of a media center, its glass facade cracked but still standing. Too easy. Security should have sealed it already. "Stay close," Laila whispered. Inside, the media hub was chaos. Desks overturned, wires ripped out, coffee still steaming in abandoned mugs. A few desperate journalists huddled around laptops, trying to force uploads through jammed networks. Soldiers shouted in the distance, dragging someone out in handcuffs. Tariq grabbed her arm. "We can't stay here long. Pick a terminal, fast." She sprinted to a corner console, booting it with trembling fingers. Her bag lay open, camera cable already in hand. The screen flickered to life, warning messages screaming about restricted access. She bypassed them with a journalist's instinctive stubbornness. For a heartbeat, the footage uploaded, frames of collapsing marble, screaming faces, the suited man's smile. Then the feed cut. The screen went black.
"What happened?" Tariq hissed.
She stared at the blank monitor, heart thundering. Someone was watching the networks, intercepting the files in real time. They weren't just controlling the narrative, they were erasing it.
A shadow moved behind them. Laila spun, her pulse hammering. A man stood in the doorway, tall, lean, his face half hidden by the light behind him. For a terrifying second, she thought it was the suited man, but no, this stranger's eyes carried a different weight.
"You can't upload from here," he said quietly, switching to English. "They're monitoring every byte. If you want this story out, you'll need to leave the city." Every instinct screamed not to trust him, but his calm contrasted with the chaos around them, and he spoke with the certainty of someone who knew the rules of the game. "Who are you?" Tariq demanded.
The man stepped closer, revealing a press badge clipped to his jacket. Samir Dawood. Laila blinked in shock. She hadn't seen him in years, not since Cairo, where he had disappeared after covering a massacre she alone survived.
What was Samir doing here, and why now? "An old friend," he said, catching her hesitation, "and someone who knows what happens to journalists who try to fight this system alone." Outside, engines roared and boots pounded. Soldiers were sweeping the building. Time was running out. Layla's eyes darted to Tariq, then back to Samir. Trust him, or risk losing the truth forever? Her heartbeat drummed in her ears. The line had collapsed, but the real fault line was here now, in the choice of who to trust in the ashes of celebration. Chapter 2. The Man Who Didn't Flinch. Soldiers were coming up the corridor in a tight wedge, rifles low, boots beating a rhythm that said, "Move now or disappear." Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the only steady sound in a building choking on panic. "This way," Samir said, already moving. "They'll box the atrium and the main stairwell. Service routes are only shot." Trusting a ghost from Cairo was insanity. But the feed had blinked dead under someone's thumb, and the city was learning to swallow witnesses as easily as it swallowed marble. Laila cinched her bag, kept her camera to her chest, and ran. They slipped through a maintenance door and into a narrow corridor lined with conduit pipe. Emergency signage in Arabic and English stenciled every 10 meters. The air stank of ozone and cleaning fluid. Somewhere above, a helicopter's thrum pressed the ceiling low. "How did you know where to find us?" Tariq panted. "I didn't," Samir said, pushing through a second door. "I knew where they'd heard you, toward bandwidth. I've been here all day mapping their sweeps." All day, as if he'd expected the grand opening to turn into triage.
They burst into a loading bay where pallets of bottled water and boxed audio gear formed makeshift barricades. A roll-up door stood half open, wind driving dust into little twisters that danced across the concrete.
"Down!" Samir hissed, flattening as a patrol vehicle crawled past outside, spotlight washing over the bay like a slow, suspicious eye.
Laila counted breath beats. In, two, out, two. She remembered a field course on panic, how breath was a handle on the body's runaway carriage. She gripped it hard. When the light moved on, Samir slid under the door, then waved them through. They hugged a wall, keeping to the shadow where the tower massed against the desert. Sirens dopplered past in layers, ambulances, enforcement, then an unfamiliar staccato wail that vibrated in her teeth. Acoustic crowd control, Tariq muttered. They're clearing the promenade. A city of the future, policed by tricks older than empires.
They snaked behind scaffold stacks and down a service ramp that dropped beneath street grade, into a trench threading the underside of the line's western modules. The mirrored cladding above reflected only a night sky and the orange bruise of fire.
Keep left, Samir said. There's a utility spine, fiber-powered desal pipes. Maintenance carts run it. If we can ride one north, we'll punch out before the next cordon. North meant the harbor and the foreign press compounds. Satellite dishes like metal flowers, petals wide open to the sky.
The trench opened into a concrete gallery lit by maintenance strips. Carts sat on induction rails, their panels blinking idle green. A locker bank stood ajar, one door pried outward with a crowbar left like an accusation.
Help me, Samir said, yanking a tarp off a flatbed. Tariq, power up. Laila, kill that locker camera. There, pinhole lens in the top jamb, the lazy blink of red. She snapped the cable, then taped the lens with gaffer from her kit, a habit as old as her first protest beat.
The cart hummed awake under Tariq's fingers. He was good with systems. Stress turned his hands competent. The induction rail pulsed faintly as power flowed.
Capacity's tight, he said. Two-seated, one hanging on, we can make 30 kilometers an hour. If they spike the rail, they will, Samir said, so don't be on it when they do.
They climbed aboard. The cart whispered forward, a phantom sleigh pulled by invisible current. The gallery blurred into a tunnel of light and shadow, signage flashing, Sector W06, W10, Geocore access, transit trunk.
Geocore. The leaked chain of emails she'd read at 2 a.m. last week had mentioned Geocore contracting third-party consultants for non-conforming stratigraphy mitigation. A beautiful string of words that meant the ground isn't what we told investors it is. Say it, she said to Samir, keeping her voice level over the hum. You've seen this failure before. Not like this, he replied. I've seen cover-ups dress in safety regs, budget stapled over warnings, but this is choreography.
Choreography, the timed collapse, the cut feed, the swift cordon, the replacement footage, a dance practiced in dark rooms.
A blue beacon strobed ahead. Tariq swore and cut power, coasting them into stillness behind a concrete rib. Voices filtered down the spine. Maintenance crew or security wearing orange to look like maintenance. Quiet, Samir breathed.
3 men walked past, one yawning, one talking softly into a throat mic, the third scanning with a handheld. And behind them, Laila's breath stopped, came the suited man from the plaza. His tie loosened now, a smear of dust across one cuff like he'd remembered to make himself look human.
He didn't belong here. Executives didn't stalk utility spines at midnight unless they needed something to vanish or arrive. That's him, she whispered, unable to stop the words. Samir didn't look. I know, he said. I saw him in the command bay at noon. He never wears a badge. No badge, above the law or between its letters.
The suited man paused beneath a camera dome. He reached up, not to disable it, but to angle it with precise fingertips so it showed only an empty corridor when he moved on. The kind of man who curated his footprints.
We follow, Laila said. We don't, Samir countered. He's bait walking itself. We get the footage out. That's the only move that changes the board. Both were right. Courage without proof was theater. Proof without courage rotted in dead drop boxes.
Tariq exhaled. Split for 90 seconds. I tail for visual confirmation. Nothing else. You two take the cart to node W09. If I'm not there in 5 minutes, you go.
No, Laila said, the word rough. We don't split in a maze built by liars.
Tariq's mouth twitched. Then no one tails, we go.
They waited until the men's footsteps faded, then powered the cart again, gliding through the wake of men who moved damaged like chess pieces.
I will find your name, she told the suited man in absentia. Names unlock doors no crowbar can.
The spine spat them out at node W09, where the underbelly yawned into a service plaza with vending machines, a map behind glass, and an elevator labeled Harbor Logistics. The kind of place workers met to trade jokes and aches. Tonight, it was deserted but not empty. Abandoned coffee cups, a high-vis jacket draped over a chair, a children's sticker on a column, a cartoon whale blowing hearts.
Up, Samir said, stabbing the elevator call. From there, 2 blocks to the shoreline. Foreign crews set up outside the police ring.
The elevator arrived with a cheerful chime that felt obscene. They stepped in, doors closed, the car rose, smooth as a lie.
Laila's phone vibrated once. Unknown number. She almost ignored it, then saw the subject line flash on a notification. Geostrat, Rev4 Final, an email to her encrypted alias from a sender she didn't recognize. Attached, a PDF and a short message. She read it aloud. "You were right, they moved the pins." Tariq's head snapped up. "What pins?"
He didn't wait for the answer. He knew. In geological surveys, pins marked borehole locations and reference points, anchors for truth in the earth. Moving pins in a report was moving reality on paper.
Her fingertips tingled. If the attachment was what it claimed to be, it wasn't just suspicion, it was evidence. "Open it when we're topside," Samir said. "Elevators are ears."
The doors slid open onto salt air and distant horns. The harbor lights were a necklace thrown across black water. Between them and the sea, a line of barricades glinted, manned by police in gray, backed by vans with antennas bristling like porcupines.
"Press lane is there," Samir said, angling his chin. Foreign crews clustered behind a rope line, cameras pointed back toward the wounded shine of the line. A satellite truck's dish tilted, hungry for sky.
If she could cross 30 meters of concrete without losing her bag, the footage had a chance at life.
A checkpoint bisected the plaza. Signs, media only, accreditation required, a table. 2 officers scanning badges with handhelds and a third watching faces more than plastic.
"Badge?" Samir asked Laila. "Compromised," she said. Her photo was already on lists. The plaza guards had been asking for a female journalist with a Nikon and black scarf, half an hour after the collapse. Samir unclipped his own and slid it to her. "Don't smile," he said. "They distrust happiness." Old Cairo joke. She had once told the same line to a 19-year-old stringer to calm his nerves. He'd later learned to never look calm.
They queued behind 2 German photographers who muttered about confiscated drones. When it was their turn, Laila stepped up, breathing slowly. The handheld beeped on the badge. The officer's eyes flicked from card to face. Her scarf hid the lower half of her jaw, dusted gray. He frowned, about to ask the question that would tangle everything. Then a commotion at the rope line snapped his head around.
"Go," Samir murmured.
They moved, not running, not slow, the exact speed of belonging. Past the scanner table, past the vans, into the media zone where foreign accents insulated them against command tones.
"Truck," Tariq said, pointing to a mid-size uplink rig with Televisión Española stenciled on the side. Its producer shouted into a headset, then waved at a tech whose hands fluttered on a patch panel. Laila approached the tech. "We have live footage from the collapse, angles no one has." She held up the camera like a flag. "Give us a minute on your dish. You'll get the feed second. World gets it first." The producer turned, calculating time and risk. "Who are you?" "A freelancer who doesn't want to be a ghost," Laila said. "Name's not important, truth is." The line would have sounded smug from anyone else. Tonight, it sounded like triage.
The producer hesitated, glanced at the barricade, then jerked his head. 1 minute, no more.
Tariq was already at the panel, hands flying. Samir took a position at the base of the dish, eyes scanning the perimeter. Laila connected her camera and opened the file list. Clip names crawled like ants. Plaza Split A, Dive Pit B, Suit Still C. She selected 3. The split, the fall, the man who didn't flinch. She set the target to a cloud instance she paid for in cash through 3 countries. The status bar bloomed, 3, 9%, 17%.
Police drifted closer to the rope, drawn by the magnet of activity. A plainclothes officer with the posture of command spoke into a lapel mic, eyes narrowing at the Spanish dish.
30 seconds, the producer warned. Then I cut you.
Bars crawled, 41, 56%. Her mouth was dry as gypsum. She tasted copper where she'd bitten her lip in the stampede.
A shadow fell over her hands. The plainclothes officer stood at the tailgate, smile made of nothing. "Documentation," he said in English, as if practicing courtesy like a borrowed shirt.
"Working under Televisión Española," Samir said smoothly, stepping between. "Credential issue at the gate. We can fetch it from the trailer." "Now," the officer said. 78%, 84%, don't look up. Looking up invited hands to take. "Cutting in 10, the producer barked, either to her or his own live segment. It didn't matter. The dish groaned as it shifted a fraction to catch a better angle on sky.
The officer's gaze left Samir, found Laila's face, and paused. Recognition flickered. Somewhere her name had been to his ear. He reached for the cable.
5, Tariq yelled, not meaning seconds, meaning something else, meaning get ready to run. 99%, 100%. The upload chimed, one clean, violating note, and the file took its first breath outside the cage. Laila yanked the cable free and slammed the laptop lid. Done.
The officer lunged. Samir blocked, gentle hands and decisive elbows, turning the grasp into an awkward stumble that made it look like the officer had tripped on the tailgate latch. The producer began to shout in Spanish about interference with foreign press. Cameras pivoted, lenses drank the argument.
Walk, Samir said, calm. Don't run.
They walked, past the dish, past indignant microphones, past a cluster of British radio stringers smoking as if that could anchor them to an older, safer kind of journalism. Back behind a van, into a seam between trucks that spat them into a service lane.
Her hands shook now that motion hid them. The footage lived. Even if someone tore the bag off her shoulder, the thing that mattered had already slipped the leash. Where? Tariq asked. Perimeter shifts east every quarter hour, Samir said. We ride the edge to the fisherman's market. From there, boats. From boats. We're not leaving, Laila said, surprising even herself with the firmness. We got one breath of truth out. The story's bigger than a clip. If she fled now, she became a courier, not a reporter. The man in the suit would keep curating reality with knife-point precision. The pins would stay moved on paper and then in the ground.
They ducked into a shadowed colonnade. Laila opened the email attachment at last. A geological map unfolded on her screen, neat lines of colored strata, borehole points numbered and annotated. On the next page, the same map with 3 pins shifted north by 40 meters. In the margin, a comment, a line with investor contour overlay, no red flags on R03 if pins adjusted to corridor plan. Initials signed the note AS. Another page, a cross-section with a void flagged at predicted sink depth, then erased in the final.
They built across a karst belt, Tariq said, voice thin. Dissolving limestone, a honeycomb. You can span it with webs of piles if you design for it. If you hide it, he blew air out in a broken laugh. You get what we saw.
Not sabotage alone. Negligence lacquered with fraud, and someone playing conductor with both.
Look at the initials, Samir said. Amar Saifi, Tariq guessed, Geocorps liaison to the ministry, or Adnan Shah, Laila said. Chief risk officer for the holding company that brokered foreign investment tranches. She'd seen that name float through press dinners 3 countries away, accompanied by whispering waiters and women who never smiled with their eyes.
Footsteps scraped behind them, not the careless drag of a tired officer. The deliberate tap of someone who had found his quarry and now respected the moment enough to walk, not run.
Move, Samir said, but softly, as if not to break a spell.
They threaded through columns and into a warren of warehouse backs. The smell of fish and petrol thickened. A generator sputtered somewhere, lights flaring and dying. A cat skittered under pallets, eyes twin coins.
Left, Tariq said, intuition mapping a path. Then up those stairs. They climbed a metal flight to a catwalk that crossed between buildings. The sea breathed below, dark, patient. From the catwalk's apex, the city unfurled. The wounded mirror of the line, the necklace harbor, the pinprick ambulances still at work around the wound. She looked back.
He stood at the bottom of the stairs, one hand on the rail like he was stepping into a train he'd chartered. The suited man. Closer, she saw the faint scar bisecting one eyebrow, the way dust haloed his hairline where sweat had tack-welded it. His eyes were bright and unhurried, and when he saw her looking, he didn't smile this time.
Ms. Al-Hakim, he said, as if greeting a panelist at a conference. You have something that belongs to my employer. Names, he gave her one by using hers. He'd read a list. She wasn't a random face. That was power and a map. And who is that? She asked. He tilted his head. Someone who can afford your silence. She felt the old anger, the one that had carried her through tear gas and blacklists, rise like a tide. How cheaply do you cost truth today, Laila? Cairo had taught her the wrong answer. You can't afford my memory, she said, and you can't afford what's already in the air.
For the first time, something moved behind his eyes, calculation tinged with annoyance. He took the first stare. Samir stepped sideways, placing himself between without drama.
Careful, the man said to Samir, tone still civil. People fall in harbors at night. People drown in paperwork every day, Samir replied. Your initials are showing. AS. She kept her face blank. but the flash must have jumped because the man's gaze flicked to her bag a fraction too long.
Two shapes detached from the alley mouth, plainclothes, not uniforms. No radio chatter, no siren. The kind of men who didn't make reports unless bodies failed to sink.
"Run," Tariq said, and this time nobody argued.
They took the catwalk at a clatter, metal booming underfoot. The suited man didn't raise his voice. He spoke one word into the sleeve of his jacket, and the generator below coughed and died. Darkness smudged the world. Only the city's far skyline drew a line around things.
Laila dropped into her other senses, handrail cool under fingers, wind direction on her cheek, Tariq's breath pattern to her left, Samir's footfalls a beat behind. "Here!" Tariq veered into a door posted equipment, authorized only. Inside, the air tasted of old oil and brine. Coils of rope hung from pegs. Nets pooled on the floor like shed skin.
They slipped between stacks of plastic fish crates and into a narrow aisle. The door banged open moments later. Footsteps padded in. A flashlight beam licked along the wall, found rope, found crates, missed breath held in unison.
"Back hatch," Samir mouthed, pointing, a rectangle of lighter dark. They inched toward it, grateful for every squeak their souls didn't make. The hatch opened onto a short ladder that spat them onto a floating dock. Water slapped underfoot. Boat hulls creaked. Rigging pinged softly in the breeze. "Untie," Tariq said, already on a small skiff, one hand on the outboard. Laila dropped her bag aboard, fingers flying on the knot. Samir kicked them free, pushed off, and they drifted into the channel like a thought lost in the noise.
Behind them, men spilled onto the dock too late. A flashlight swept water, then found only unhelpful reflections. Someone swore, the kind of word that knew it wouldn't be written down.
Laila let breath leave her ribs all at once. The skiff's engine muttered awake, and they nosed along the edge of the harbor, where light broke itself in the black.
"Battery low," Tariq said, squinting at a cracked gauge. "We've got 15 minutes before this turns into a paddle."
15's enough, Samir said. "We cut behind the dredge barge, then along the seawall. There's a jetty that leads to a service tunnel back under the northern modules." "Back under?" Laila asked. "We just got out." "We also got a target painted on us," Samir said. "Foreign press zone will get raided on a timetable. We need a place they don't expect, a hole between their maps. Back into the guts of the thing that tried to eat them. If she were writing this as fiction, her editor would redline the decision as unbelievable. Real life rarely worried about plausibility.
She opened the map again, scrolling to the metadata. The PDF properties listed a creation workstation. Geocore Ashar 7, not Amar. Adnan Shah. The risk officer. The suited man's initials matched the file's author tag like a fingerprint smear on glass.
"It's him," she said, voice small under the sky. "Adnan Shah." Samir nodded once. "He's more broker than builder. He doesn't pour concrete. He buys silence." Good. Names could be said aloud. Names could go in copy. Names could be searched by angry relatives and bored clerks and young prosecutors with fathers to disappoint.
The skiff slid into a lane between moored cranes and a dredge barge the size of a city block. Half its lights burned. A generator thumped like a heart too big for its chest. The air grew metallic, cut with the iodine of sea.
"There," Samir pointed. A low jetty pierced the seawall like a tongue. Beyond it, a dark slit promised a tunnel. "Once we're in, keep left. The maintenance path parallels the desal pipes. It'll take us to a crawl space under W14. There's a node I've used. No cameras, just a bored rat." "Comforting," Tariq said.
They bumped the jetty and tied off with the quiet relief of competency. The slit was indeed a tunnel, crusted with salt and smelling of rust. Their footsteps sounded like trespass. Laila ran her fingertips along the concrete, feeling the city's pulse through it. Vibration, heat, a faint high whine of data screaming through somewhere unseen.
They had proof of shifted pins and a name that salted food. But proof was a newborn. It needed siblings, contracts, emails, a timeline. And it needed context that would survive the first volley of denials. They moved deeper until the sea became a rumor and the city a possibility. Overhead, the line's mirrored skin reflected a night that didn't know their names. Under it, 3 people carried a story that could crack it further than any sinkhole. "We don't just leak," Laila said into the tunnel's hum. "We publish, with sources, with dates, with a path from pin to pit. We make it so clean the world has to look." And somewhere behind them, a man whose smile didn't waver began drawing a tighter circle. Ahead, the tunnel bent left toward darkness. From that darkness, a faint glow pulsed. Green, then dead, then green again, like a heartbeat counting down. Chapter 3, Pins and Pockets. The tunnel breathed in slow pulses of green light that rose and fell like a buried heartbeat. Concrete sweated salt. Pipes ran overhead in bundled arteries. Brine in, fresh out. Heat exchange loops ticking softly as if the city were whispering to itself. Laila kept one hand on the wall, the cool roughness a tether. The upload had bought them time, not safety. If Adnan Shah could move pins on a map, he could move men in the dark. Left at the fork, Samir said. You'll smell it before you see it. Smell what? Tariq asked. Industrial truth. It never learned manners.
The air changed first, a tang of iodine giving way to a hot metallic note like blood on a radiator. Then the sound. A low turbine whir, not loud but total, the kind of noise that made your teeth wonder what they were for. They emerged into a service vault where the tunnel widened around a sealed door stenciled W14 subplant access. Above it, a status light pulsed green, green, dead green, exactly the rhythm that had guided them. Power sagging under a load somewhere.
If we're lucky, Tariq said, kneeling under the panel, they've locked it down to keep protesters out, not engineers in. Different philosophy. Samir faced the tunnel mouth, one ear turned to the dark as if it could speak intentions. Laila crouched beside Tariq, holding her phone's screen as a lamp. Behind a pop-on cover lay a badge reader, a physical key slot, and a maintenance port with a dust cap still tied on with brittle thread. An older system folded into a shiny one and never fully retired, a bit of institutional memory preserved by laziness and cost. Badge, Tariq asked. Confiscated, Samir said. Laila dug into her bag and pulled out a small wallet of tools. I can spoof the reader if the line noise isn't too thick. She flipped open a folding antenna patch, coax cable coiled like a question mark. Tariq glanced at her. Since when? Since Cairo. Cameras are eyes, doors are mouths. She slid the patch against the panel, phone balanced on her knee. If the log's verbose, we can lift a recent token and replay it.
3 tries. On the 4th, the reader chirped with the resigned tone of hardware doing what it was told. The light went steady green.
Inside, Samir said.
The door opened into a catwalk that overlooked a cavernous subplant. Desalination intake filters, reverse osmosis racks, tanks ribbed like whale bellies. The scale was intimate compared to the grand renderings, a backstage set, not the theater. But Laila felt the same awe she'd felt in the plaza. Here was humanity making water out of salt and sunlight, daring physics to deny them comfort. It would have been beautiful if it hadn't been built on a lie.
Record, don't sermonize. Let the facts do the sermon. Control room, Tariq said, pointing to a glass-walled box perched above the racks. If we can pull system logs, we might catch the sag that started the cascade. Move like you belong, Samir said. Belonging confuses bullets.
They crossed the catwalk. Below, pumps purred, white noise swallowing whispers. The control room door was propped with a binder. Inside, 2 chairs, a bank of screens running telemetry in blues and greens, a half-eaten flatbread, a mug with tea gone a skin too old to drink.
Tariq slid into a chair and woke a sleeping console. Local logs only. Network links are throttled to hell, but local is honest when it forgets who's reading. Laila moved behind him, lens low, capturing not the screens themselves, but reflections in the glass, the way a good lawyer photographed a contract's shadow to prove tampering later. She set her audio to pick up the hum. Sound made good texture in a cut.
Lines of events crawled past in a tight font. Pressure Delta RO3A, spike. Intake microscreen, fouling. Alert gas detector, Bay 2, minor methane. Structure vibration Z, alarm, acknowledged, suppressed, suppressed. That should have required 2 authorizations, sometimes 3. Here it was 1 click, initialed AS.
Tariq tapped the screen. There, 2 minutes before the plaza split. Structural sensors scream. Someone told them to whisper. Not chance, not panic, a finger on purpose. Pull whatever's signed AS, Laila said. Cross with the GeoCore PDF metadata. We need a chain that threads from the pin moved to this room. He nodded, spun up a script, and started exporting to an encrypted thumb. We should also mirror the PLCs, he said. If someone wipes the logs, the controllers may still hold rung states. What's our window? Samir asked from the door, eyes never still. 7 minutes before the next patrol loop if they're running standard plant security, Tariq said. 4 if they're spooked.
The tea mug had a name scrawled in permanent marker, Huda. Beside it, a laminated card with emergency codes, edges rounded by handling. Laila felt a twist in her chest she refused to call sentiment. These rooms were always staffed by people with stories and rent and parents to call on Fridays. When catastrophes came, the architects hid behind CFOs and the operators bore the smoke in their lungs.
Names. Names tie tragedy to systems so it doesn't float away as spectacle.
Someone was on shift, she murmured. Huda. If she survived, she knows who called that suppression.
Samir nodded. If she didn't, her friends do. Either way, we'll find her.
Tariq's script finished one dump, began another. A status window popped. External access request, admin. It blinked twice and vanished. The cursor stuttered as if a ghost hand had brushed it.
They're probing, Tariq said. We're a light in a dark place. Kill the interface, Laila said. Air gap the copy. We've got enough to bleed.
He yanked the Ethernet, the screen sulked, and suddenly the control room felt isolated on a sea of thrum. He slid the thumb drive into a slot on the underside of the console and sealed it with a strip of tape. He handed Laila a second drive warm from his palm. Redundant.
She slipped it into a pocket sewn under the lining of her bag. When you'd had gear confiscated enough times, you learned to have one thing no one knew you had. Company, Samir said.
2 figures moved along the catwalk. High-vis vests, hard hats, posture too neat for actual maintenance. One held a tablet. The other's right hip bulged where pistols liked to sit when men with suits sent men with vests to do the part of the job that didn't fit ballots.
Hide in plain sight, Samir said, pulling open a cabinet full of binders. He handed Laila a clipboard and slid a pen behind her ear. Check valve counts. Frown at a gauge like it owes you money. She stepped into the doorway, let the light hit her like she belonged to it, and bent over a gauge whose needle trembled in the green. Tariq stayed half-turned at the console, fingers moving with intimate boredom. Samir leaned into the door jamb, a man on hour 9 of a 12-hour shift. Evening, the tablet man said, voice vowels from nowhere and everywhere. We're doing a sweep. You get a remote reset prompt in the last half hour? Yeah, Tariq said without turning. I ignored it. Whoever sent it can buy me a new PLC if they want to poke live running plant over VPN. Tablet man grunted, the fraternity of competent people, recognizing a line they also drew. We're reauthorizing suppression, he held up the tablet. Signature? Not mine, Tariq said. Get shift lead. Who's lead? Huda, Laila said, barely glancing up from her imaginary numbers. She's on smoke break, north platform.
The 2 men exchanged a look, a quick calculus of what they knew about the faces here tonight and whether to admit it. Tablet man shrugged. We'll find her.
Go, keep walking, be bored, the universe is paperwork.
They moved on. Their footsteps faded into the plant's steady breath. Laila let the frown fall off her face.
We have to move, Samir said. They'll circle back with names. Back route? Laila asked. Samir pointed to a ladder that plunged down beside a thick pipe. Cable trench. It'll snake us under the midline. There's a maintenance pocket I've used. No cameras, one door, good ears.
They dropped into heat. The trench was barely a meter wide, cable trays marching along the wall like vertebrae. The pipe radiated warmth that soaked into Laila's skin through her clothes. The sound changed to a close, intimate hiss.
She thought of the first story that had cost her sleep. A hospital that had swapped sterilization protocols for cheaper ones. Infection rates climbing like a graph no one presented in meetings. She had learned then that reality failed in small rooms, not in press conferences. 2 more junctions, Tariq said, reading tags. We're under W15. Pocket should be ahead.
It was. A door painted the color of caution tape, a hand-lettered sign taped to it. Rats live here, with a smiley face that someone had given fangs. Samir knocked twice, a code between him and the quiet.
Cute, Laila said. Engineers, Samir replied. They hang humor where hope is busy.
Inside, the maintenance pocket was exactly that. A pocket cut into infrastructure, barely 3 meters square, with a folding table, 2 plastic chairs, a corkboard with printouts, and a cheap kettle that had boiled more philosophy than water. A battery lantern hung from a hook, casting clean white light without asking the building for permission.
10 minutes, Samir said, closing the door and sliding a bolt. Then we move again. Laila spread her bag's contents with battlefield neatness. Camera, batteries, the drive, a small notepad with grid lines. She wrote 3 columns. What we have, what we need, Who can give it?
What we have: collapse footage, the man who didn't flinch, plant logs showing suppressed alarms, PDF with moved pins, AS metadata, name Adnan Shah, a thread that tied borehole lies to a structural failure to an attempted remote override. What we need: contract chain between Geocore and the holding company, minutes of any risk committee where karst was mentioned, the geological borehole raw datasets, labor incident logs from the site, Huda's testimony, any insurance rider that penalized undisclosed karst belts, a voice recording that said a human sentence tying all the bricks into a wall. Who can give it? A whistleblower inside Geocore. Procurement at the ministry, accountants who knew which invoices arrived covered in perfume, Huda or her colleagues, a rival contractor happy to leak.
We need a source, she said, a real one. Anonymous is fine, dead is inconvenient. Liv is often reluctant, Samir said, putting water in the kettle from a bottle he'd stashed. But reluctance dissolves in certain solvents: guilt, fear, and love. Tariq scrubbed his hands over his face. Geocore isn't a monolith. There's always one junior engineer who tried to stop the avalanche with emails. She remembered being that engineer in journalism, young enough to believe email subject lines could save lives. Start with the initials, she said. AS could be a sign-on alias for more than one person. Adnan may have co-opted an admin account. Pull the user table from the plant's directory if the domain spans. Tariq opened his laptop in airplane mode, spun up a local instance of a directory crawler, and fed it the cache they'd scraped. We don't have the crown, he said, but we have its shadow. Logon events. Here, Asha. That's the workstation from the PDF. Same machine logged remote suppressions 10 minutes before collapse. So our man was hands-on, Samir said. They'll argue he was patching, not plotting. We argue physics, Laila replied. Karst doesn't negotiate.
Her phone vibrated again, same anonymous address as the PDF. This time, no attachment, just a line of text. You're not the only ones who want it to fall. Then a second, East End, Birdlight, midnight, come without cops.
Saboteurs, Samir said. He didn't need to see the screen, the smell of trap was in his voice. Or a scared engineer using the only channel she thinks will read, Laila said. Birdlight? Tariq snapped his fingers. Harbor art installation, LEDs in a flock pattern, mocks starling murmurations. They call it birdlight in the tourist brochure. A meet in the open, under pretty distractions. Good for cameras, bad for endings. We go, Laila said, but we don't go blind. Samir poured tea into chipped cups. 3 angles, he said. One at the meeting, one on a ridge with a long lens, one shadowing anyone who shadows you. We bring nothing that pings. And we carry a question no saboteur likes, Tariq said. Bodies, how many are you willing to stack for the cause? They drank in silence. The tea tasted like iron and mint. On the corkboard, someone had pinned a photo of a cat sleeping on coils of rope with the caption, "Mouse control, do not reassign." Human corners inside machine rooms. They were why Laila still believed in work that bruised you. Because even in systems built to crush, people left small proofs that they hadn't been flattened.
Time, Samir said, checking a watch with a cracked face. Pocket is safe because it's fast, not because it's hidden.
They retraced the trench and climbed into a corridor that led to a great opening into night. They were farther north now, where the line met temporary scaffolds and permanent sea. Ahead, the horizon was stitched with the bird light, thousands of LEDs swooping in synchronized arcs, a steel flock pretending to be wild.
Position, Samir said. Tariq, ridge above the amphitheater. Laila, center bench, visible but not obvious. I'll be driftwood. Define driftwood, she said. Everything and nothing, the thing you never notice twice.
Despite the cordons, people had gathered. Locals who'd worked day shifts and couldn't bear to go home without seeing the night's wound. Foreigners whose badges gave them a geometry around fear. Children craned for the lights. Parents pretended the disaster was just a rumor, because humans are built to live where they stand.
Laila chose a bench with an exit to her left and a family to her right. Families make good shields against abductions and worse. She sat, hands open on her knees, bag strap across her chest.
A woman with a black scarf sat 2 places away, face shadowed. When she spoke, her voice was cracked like clay. You came.
I did, Laila said. Who are you? Someone who told them not to move pins. The woman's hands trembled. She clamped them to stillness. They moved anyway. No sudden questions. Let confession choose its door.
What did you see?
Emails. Meetings where we were told to be solution-oriented. I wrote a report with red on it. They printed the version with green. They told me I didn't understand vision. A bitter laugh that died young. I understand limestone, it doesn't care for vision.
Your name? Laila asked softly.
A heartbeat of fear. Huda, she said, so quietly it might have been the sea. I was on console when the alarms came. I logged them. Then the remote suppression came with AS. It overrode my block. I stood up to call a supervisor, and by the time I turned back, the ground ate people. The tea mug in the control room. The round edges of the laminated card. Do you have copies? I took photos. I thought it would be enough, but they took my phone at the checkpoint and gave it back empty. Huda swallowed. I printed one page because paper is stubborn. I hid it. She slid an envelope across the bench, not looking down, eyes on the birdlight as if it were the thing they were meeting for.
Inside, a copy of a memo on geocore letterhead, subject, stratigraphy alignment, investor presentation. The paragraph Laila needed. If pins 1719 are adjusted to corridor overlay, karst pockets will not intersect the proposed foundation array in any visualization to be shared with stakeholders. Initials AS Risk Investor Relations.
Thank you, Laila said, meaning it the way you thanked someone who had cut off a piece of themselves to hand you. I'm not brave, Huda said. If I were brave, I would have pulled the alarm and chained myself to the button. I just didn't want to be the only one who knew. Bravery is a God word journalists use to make sense of people doing the minimum that saves the maximum. Laila had never trusted God words. You won't be alone, she said. But we have to be careful. They know your name. They know everyone's name. They know your face.
A ripple moved through the crowd. Not fear exactly, but that rustle humans make when they sense choreography overhead. Laila followed Huda's gaze. 3 men stood at the back of the amphitheater, silhouettes with attention. One lifted a phone, not to film the birdlight, but to angle its camera as a mirror. Behind them, a 4th shadow leaned on a rail like a man watching a boat he owned.
Go, Laila said. Now, walk to the family with the stroller. Ask to borrow a diaper. Keep talking until you're in the lights where everyone can see you, then keep walking. Huda nodded. Her hands didn't tremble now. She stood, smoothed her scarf, and did exactly as she was told, because she was the kind of person who could follow an instruction even when her life fell in two.
The 3 men at the back began to sort themselves into a triangle that would pinch the bench. The 4th shadow stayed leaning, a patience Laila recognized without needing to see his eyebrow scar.
Don't stand, Samir said, voice close without body. He had melted onto the bench behind her, a jacket draped over his arm like it was keeping him warm. A stand triggers motion. We're driftwood. Lens, Laila murmured. On them, Tariq said in her ear. He'd routed a whisper through the tiniest bone conduction bud. If they move, the world will see before they do. This was the part of reporting they never taught. How to become heavy, how to deny the body's wish to flee, how to let your mass make a fact in the world. The nearest man reached the row in front of them and turned like he'd forgotten something. He sat, casual, the back of his neck a study in intent. You met with a friend, he said in Arabic, pitched for the 2 of them only. Friends are dangerous. So are employers, Laila replied, yours especially. He smiled without turning. You are collecting paper. Paper burns.
Paper copies itself, Samir said. You should know your bosses taught it to.
The man's phone buzzed. He read something, then stood with a small nod, and the triangle unwound. At the rail, the 4th silhouette peeled away and walked into dark. He didn't look back. He never did.
Laila let breath go in a long thread. Her hands returned to her. Her pulse retreated to places it belonged. Huda? Tariq asked softly. In the light, Samir said. Stroller family, now a cluster of 3 other mothers. A fortress of small talk. Then we go, Laila said. We have the memo. We lock it with the logs. We build the chain.
They rose when the crowd did, as the birdlight performed a last sweep and dimmed to a scatter of stars that weren't. People clapped, because people clap for things bigger than themselves. It helps.
Samir guided them through alleys that smelled of cardamom and diesel to a stair that led down into the service band again, the city above closing like a mouth. The story had weight now, not just spectacle, a sequence, Pins moved on paper, Risk signed it, alarms suppressed, collapse, an attempted erasure, a man who didn't flinch, a woman who refused to be the only witness. They reached the maintenance pocket and found the bolt already slid open. The door stood ajar by an inch. On the floor inside, a circle of light fell from the lantern, which swung gently, once, twice, then steadied. On the table lay the kettle, still warm, and beside it a single high-vis vest, folded with care. Pinned to it with a staple was a card. Rats live here. Someone's been, Samir said. Left us a gift? Tariq asked, though his voice made it a warning. Laila stepped in, careful where she put her feet. She lifted the vest. Under it, not a bomb or a wire, but a small black notebook, the kind engineers use to argue with future selves. She opened it to the first page and read, written in neat block letters. If you're reading this, it means the pins moved you too. Start at W19. There's a second map, the one they didn't print. They hid it where you'd only look if you already knew what they did, behind the mirror that shows you yourself. A mirror. The line was a mirror. The map was behind a mirror. Sometimes metaphors paid rent. We go to W19, Laila said, and we bring a crowbar for the truth.
The lantern buzzed, the plant hummed, and somewhere above them a city pretended to sleep. The notebook lay open between their hands like a door nobody had locked, because the builders had never believed anyone would walk this corridor with eyes open. Chapter 4, Behind the Mirror. The maintenance pocket exhaled hot air as they slipped back into the spine. Pipes sang in tired metal. The notebook rode in Laila's bag, its weight new and persuasive, W19. A second map hidden behind the mirror that shows you yourself.
The line was a hall of self-portraits. Every surface returned a face. But within infrastructure, mirror meant inspection panels and one-way glass. Places designed to look like decoration while hiding what mattered. W19's above the desal band, Samir said. Public-facing, gallery level. So crowds, Tariq murmured, tightening his backpack, and cameras that report to people who love tidy stories.
They moved through the service artery until a great coughed-up night. Stars were thin. The city cast its own constellations, work lights, police beacons, the bird lights' afterglow. A scaffold stair climbed to W19 like a bare-bones confession tacked onto a luxury brochure.
2 up, 1 drift behind, Samir said. We rotate the tail at each landing. They climbed. At the 3rd landing, wind pressed warm against their faces, flavored with brine and concrete dust. By the 5th, boots echoed from below, not near, but purposeful. Don't race shadows. Keep the cadence. Make your heartbeat a metronome.
W19 opened into an elevated plaza that had been a marketing render just weeks earlier. Planters of drought-resistant succulents, seating carved from recycled steel, a glass wall that gave onto a gallery. The mirror wasn't a wall. It was the building itself. Ceiling height panels that returned a fractured Laila in triplicate. Camera strap, scarf, eyes that refused to be young.
Which mirror? Tariq asked. The one they expect visitors to photograph themselves in, Laila said. If you want a secret overlooked, hide it inside a compulsion. She watched tourists, what few remained, drift to a particular seam where glass met glass in a V that made flattering reflections. There, Samir said softly. Traffic pattern says it's special.
They crossed the plaza as if drawn by vanity. Laila lifted her phone, framed a shot like everyone else, then angled it to capture the back of the glass. A faint rectangle bloomed and died behind the reflection. An access panel in a spectrum the human eye ignores, but a camera doesn't.
Infra cutout, Tariq said, amused despite bruises. They skinned a service hatch in smart glass. Crowd, Samir murmured. We can't lever it open without a seam. Scenes were for broadcasts. They needed a pocket of invisibility. Create glare, Laila said. 2 phones, max brightness, white screens. Hold them at 45 degrees to paint out anyone watching. I'll pop the seam.
They took positions, screens flared, reflections blew out to halos, and the plaza's minds drifted, preferring beauty to focus. Laila slid a thin pry from her hair, an old habit disguised as an accessory, and pressed into the seam. The smart glass resisted, then sighed. A tongue of panel eased forward.
2 minutes, Samir breathed. He blocked with his body the way you shelter a match in wind.
Behind the mirror, a shallow cavity with control relays, a maintenance badge nest, and, taped to the steel, a mylar sleeve. Inside the sleeve, rolled plans bound with a red elastic and a Polaroid of a borehole collar stamped W19. Someone had written on the white border, "The ground keeps receipts."
She handed the roll to Tariq. Hands practiced, he unfurled enough to see legends, then refurled with reverence. "Raw stratigraphy slices," he whispered, "not the pretty investor model. Voids plotted in black, big as houses."
Fold, Samir said. We're not the only ones who come here for secrets.
A guard ambled into their peripheral world, attention more on his phone than people. The panel slid back with a satisfying click, glass rehealing to a perfect lie. Layla's camera hung neutrally against her ribs. The guard yawned, scratched his cheek, and kept walking.
"Move," Samir said. "We tag and bag in a place that doesn't echo."
They threaded back toward a stairwell, walking the speed of belonging. The plaza's murmurs fell behind, replaced by the honest clank of steel.
"We need 3 copies," Tariq said, voice low. "Off-site redundancies. Also, context. The plans on their own are bombshells but deniable. Pair them with procurement timelines and risk minutes, and they become gravity. Proof is brittle alone. Proof in sequence is a spine."
They reached the stair and found a man blocking the landing, legs casual, eyes not uniform, collar open, scar through an eyebrow neat as a ruler.
"Good evening," Adnan Shah said, as if it were hospitality. "Or is it morning? One loses track on momentous days." So the circle tightened. He didn't need a squad when confidence ricocheted for him. "You're off script," Laila said. "Most executives prefer stately statements and a car with windows that don't roll down." "I prefer outcomes," Adnan replied, "and the assurance that mistakes don't repeat." His gaze dipped, not to her bag, he was too trained for that, but to a point a centimeter to its left. "You have something that doesn't belong to you." "Maps are not property, they're warnings," Tariq said. "Then consider me warned," Adnan said. "Return them."
Samir's stance changed by no degree visible to a camera and by several to anyone who had lived. He had one hand in his pocket, not because there was a weapon in it, but because hands in pockets make men look harmless until they aren't.
"Keep the originals," Adnan said. "I only need to know what you intend to do with them, and who will whisper in your ear while you do it." This was the pitch where the floor slid. Offer mercy, offer money, offer a version of truth tidy enough to frame. "We publish," Layla said, "with names, with dates, with the layers underneath the brochure." "You publish," Adnan repeated, tasting the word like an appetizer. "And then what? You'll be applauded for 24 hours. A committee will form. They will change a noun in a policy and call it justice. Meanwhile, the city needs water tomorrow morning." He inclined his head toward W19's belly, humming through concrete. "Your story does not make reverse osmosis." He wanted her to carry the weight of a nation's thirst as the price of silence. Old tactic, effective on those who had never learned that harm multiplies most in rooms with polished tables. "Karst collapses don't make water either," Laila said. "They make graves."
The faintest admiration crossed his face, either for the line or the refusal to bow to his rhetoric. He stepped aside like a man showing guests out of his house. "One more thing," he said. "Huda is a good operator. Don't ruin her life to decorate your masthead."
"Don't suppress her alarms to decorate your quarterly," Laila said. He smiled with just the top half of his face. "We'll speak again when you've decided how large a story you can afford."
They stepped past him. He didn't turn. He didn't need to. Men like him arranged the world to turn for them.
His calm wasn't invincibility, it was habit. Habits can be broken if you pry at the right seam. They dropped 2 flights before letting breath move freely. City noise rolled back in, sirens farther now, generator thumps softened. A vendor somewhere insisted on selling tea because people insist on rituals when the ground lies. "Safe house," Samir said, "not mine. A friend of a friend who hates everyone equally. We scan, duplicate, and stash. And we thread the maps into a chronology," Tariq added. "We'll need procurement calendars, contractor meetings, site incident logs. If we can show that every time funding dipped, pin positions magically improved, even a sleepy prosecutor will smell it." "Plus a voice," Layla said. "Huda's, or someone who was in the room when AS said the quiet part."
The place was a shipping office that had outlived its port. Brittle posters of container cutaways, a rubber stamp pad dry since another administration, blinds that made the world into a barcode. A router blinked in the corner, unplugged. The electricity came from a stubborn spool on the floor and a web of good intentions.
They spread the maps on a plywood desk. Tariq photographed each sheet square by square, building a mosaic. Laila cross-referenced borehole numbers with the memo Huda had smuggled. Pins 1719 on the plan lined up with the black pockets in the northeast slab. The corridor investors loved in brochures for its sunrise views. The marketing video she'd seen last month, children running along a mirrored promenade, a voiceover promising a city that learns from the land. The corridor was the shot. The shot had buried the warning.
Samir dialed without looking at the keypad. 2 calls, he said. One to a lawyer who bites metal, one to an editor who has learned to outlive owners.
Keep Huda's name out of the air, Laila said. For now, she's a witness, not a martyr. Samir nodded once. I keep names like teeth. Metadata checks, Tariq said, hunched over a laptop running locally. Dates on these scans match the week the Investor Roadshow hit London. And look, handwritten note in the margin, barely visible. Shift for deck. It's their language. They moved geology to fit a PowerPoint. Not a metaphor anymore. Literal, PowerPoint over bedrock.
A message skated across Layla's screen from the same anonymous address that had sent the PDF. You've opened the mirror. They will close the doors. Then a location pin. An admin entrance 3 blocks away, followed by 15 minutes.
Trap, Samir said, or a door we must step through now because it won't be there when the lawyers wake, Laila replied. Admin entrance means personnel files. If we pull the risk committee attendance sheets tonight, we can plant them offshore with the maps. Tomorrow, if they lock the servers, we still have the names. Tariq looked up, balancing risk and bandwidth like equations. We go paper first, cameras second. If it's a trap, paper burns slower than drives wipe. 3 blocks, Samir said. We take the alleys with dogs. Men who hate noise choose other routes.
They moved. The city's midnight had slid into that hour when grief naps and bureaucracy stretches. A stray dog lifted its head, decided they weren't carrying meat, and slept again. At the admin entrance, a single floodlight made an island. A keypad blinked expectantly. Above it, a camera sulked, wrapped in a spider web thick enough to be municipal art.
Laila cupped her hands as if to light a cigarette and shielded the keypad from the light. Tariq slid a wedge under the door to hold any surprise latch. Samir posted at the corner, a silhouette with patience. Factory code cycle still active, Tariq whispered, fingers talking to numbers. No one bothered to disable the vendor back door. The lock buzzed like a bored fly. The door opened.
Admin smelled of toner and coffee cooled to the temperature of regret. The hall was lined with framed certificates that congratulated people for making shapes out of money. A motion sensor tried to wake lights but got only half its wish. Pools of brightness that made shadows deeper.
Records, Laila said. She had a nose for where paper slept. 3rd door on the right, human capital in brushed steel. They slipped in.
Filing cabinets, lateral, oversized, labels in neat corporate font, contractors, risk committee, safety incidents, vendor liaison, and on a shelf the holy grail of lazy empires, a ring binder labeled meeting packs, print spares.
Hello, darling, Samir breathed, lifting it like a midwife with a newborn. Laila took photos as pages turned. Attendance sheets, with A. Shah circling dates like a conjunction. Agendas where stratigraphy alignment was tucked under stakeholder comms. A slide marked risk acceptance, executive, with a tick that might be a signature. She wanted to scream at the audacity of printing a crime and labeling it PAC, but she only sharpened her focus. 2 minutes, Tariq said, at the door, ear to the hinge. Patrol loop will sweep this hall. Pull the criticals, Laila said. We take the pack cover and the sign-ins, leave the rest. We don't gut them, we shave.
They slid pages into a manila envelope with the speed of people who understood how long a second could be. Samir returned the binder to its dust shadow with almost tender accuracy. They stepped back into the hall as footsteps approached, not quite running, certainly not strolling.
Bathroom, Samir breathed. Nothing looks more boring than 3 people washing their hands at midnight.
They ducked into facilities. Cold light, a mirror. This one showed no secrets behind it, only 3 faces that had known better nights. Water ran. Laila counted to 11, shook droplets into the sink, and felt absurdly grateful for the civility of plumbing.
Boots went by. Voices discussed overtime as if danger were a shift differential. The lights hummed. The mirror returned their patience to them, slightly kinder than the self. Now, Samir said.
They ghosted the way they came, the door swallowing them into the alley. the floodlight hummed. A moth headbutted it until it remembered night.
Maps, logs, memo, meeting pack, names. The chain was learning to hold its own weight. We split, Samir said, for the first time without dissent meeting him. 2 stashes, 2 routes. If one of us goes dark, the story keeps walking. Tariq with me, Laila said. You're driftwood tonight. Samir's smile didn't reach his eyes. I prefer flotsam. It floats after the wreck.
He vanished into scaffolding like a rumor returning to its maker. Laila and Tariq took the narrower streets. A minaret somewhere announced a time the city didn't care about. Another dog argued with the moon and lost.
You know he's right, Tariq said quietly. Publishing is a furnace. It can warm or consume. I know, she said. We choose what to feed it. We don't feed it people we can save. They rounded a corner and the world tilted. A convoy of black SUVs idled nose to nose across the lane, their engines a purr that meant stay still. Doors opened in choreographed sequence. Men stepped out, not many, just enough. At the center, a woman in a dark abaya, face uncovered, eyes that knew ownership better than fear. Ms. Al-Hakim, she said, voice as smooth as polished steel, you've been busy. I represent parties who prefer their cities upright. New player, not Adnan, above him or beside him, a ledger in human skin. You're late to the party, Laila said. We've already sent the invitations. Then think of me as the decorator, the woman replied. I'm here to make sure the room looks presentable when the guests arrive.
Behind Laila, tires whispered. 2 more vehicles eased into place, closing back, making the alley a throat. Tariq shifted weight, not to run, no room, but to balance.
Bring me the originals, the woman said. You will receive safety and a platform. You may even tell a version of the truth, one that doesn't invite collapse of markets or reputations. Versions, the oldest currency. We're done bartering, Laila said, and felt how true it was in her bones. If the city falls because truth stands, build a better city.
The woman's eyes cooled a degree. She gestured. A man stepped forward with a small black case. Bland, expensive. He opened it to reveal a device that didn't look like a weapon until you thought about what a weapon for stories would look like. A jammer. Compact, humming at a pitch you felt in your molars.
Signal's about to go, Tariq whispered. Anything we haven't pushed is about to be suffocated. Choices compressed to a diamond. Split the pack, Laila said, already tearing the manila at its seam. 3 directions. They can't buy every street.
She shoved 1/3 of the papers under a pallet stack, 1/3 into Tariq's jacket lining, 1/3 into a drain pipe whose grate she'd already loosened with a boothiel while they talked. Never waste a conversation.
You can have the photocopies, Laila said, handing her nothing. We'll keep the truth. The woman's smile said she appreciated style even in enemies. She flicked 2 fingers. The jammer sang. Phones went dead. Radios hiccuped. The alley became a room made only of bodies and breath.
Take them, the woman said too gently.
And somewhere above the alley, as if the city also wished to speak, a mirror cracked. Chapter 5, Fractures. The crack overhead spread like lightning across the mirrored facade, shards raining in slow arcs that caught the floodlight and scattered it into knives. People ducked, arms over their heads. The convoy men hesitated, caught between their orders and their skulls. Opportunity was never polite.
Now, Laila hissed.
She and Tariq bolted sideways as a slab of glass punched the tarmac, exploding into a million glittering splinters. Shouts turned into chaos. The jammer shrieked, overloading itself with static, and died in a puff of scorched plastic. Radios screamed awake.
After them, the woman barked, voice cutting through the rain of glass.
Laila and Tariq sprinted into a loading yard, weaving through forklifts and stacked pallets. Tires squealed behind them. Boots pounded. The night filled with the metallic roar of falling panels, the line shedding its skin 1 mirror at a time. Every echo sounded like pursuit. Every corner was a coin toss between escape and capture. This way, Tariq pointed toward a service stairwell half hidden behind a tangle of scaffolding.
They clattered down the steps, the air growing damp, briny. Pipes lined the walls, warm against their shoulders as they slid into the underbelly of the city again. The sound of pursuit dulled behind the machinery's thrum.
Laila clutched her bag to her chest. 1/3 of the files gone to the drain, 1/3 in Tariq's jacket, 1/3 hidden under pallets. Redundancy was survival, but losing any piece still felt like tearing muscle. We can't keep running blind, Tariq said, bent double, catching his breath. They'll flood every exit. Then we find a place they don't look, Laila said. A place they don't believe exists.
She thought of the notebook's phrase, behind the mirror that shows you yourself. Whoever had left it had also written, the ground keeps receipts. That wasn't just geology, it was an instruction.
The karst, the sinkholes, beneath the line wasn't empty. It was storage.
The stairwell opened into a low chamber where pumps sat in rows, grumbling like stubborn beasts. On the far wall, a heavy steel hatch was marked restricted, geocore only. A keypad blinked a board red. Beside it, scratched into the paint with something sharp, was a word, receipt.
Someone left us a trail, Laila said. Or a trap, Tariq muttered. Same thing tonight, she replied, pressing her palm flat against the hatch.
The keypad wasn't standard. It asked for a code, then a second prompt, input token. Tariq pulled a USB stick from his pocket, the redundant thumb they hadn't used yet. He jammed it into a port below the pad. The red light blinked, then green. The hatch clunked and eased open with a sigh like a reluctant witness. Beyond lay a cavern, natural, not man-made, lit by a skeletal frame of flood lamps strung on cables. The floor was uneven limestone, wet with seepage. And in the middle, stacked on pallets, were boxes stamped Geocore Archive, internal use only.
The receipts, the ground had kept them. They hid the raw surveys here, Tariq said, eyes wide. Borehole cores, unedited. This is the truth before they painted it. They pried open a crate. Inside were cylindrical samples of rock, each tagged and logged. Beside them, folders thick with handwritten notes, margins filled with underlines and question marks. Evidence of engineers who had seen and warned and been ignored. This is enough to bury them, Laila whispered. Which means it's enough to bury us, Tariq said. Bootsteps echoed in the cavern, not one set, many. Flashlights cut through the dark, shadows stretched long across the stone. They followed, Samir said, slipping from behind a crate, face pale with sweat. I bought you 5 minutes at the alley. That woman, she doesn't bluff, she's here. 5 minutes was a gift, but now the circle had closed and the truth was in reach. Then we fight for it, Laila said, lifting her camera like a weapon.
Flashlights converged, voices barked orders, and in the floodlit cavern beneath the line, mirrors above shattering into dust, the story poised on a knife edge, either to vanish in the dark or blaze so brightly it could never be smothered. Chapter 6, The Cavern of Receipts. Flood lamps throw bone-white ribs across the limestone. Water ticks from the ceiling like an impatient clock. The cavern breathes cold, the crates breathe secrets. Footsteps multiply in the dark, measured, rehearsed, confident.
Hold the center. Don't get herded to the edges. Keep a hand on what matters. Light discipline, Samir says, snapping his palm over Laila's camera tally. They're using cones. 3 beams rake the arch. 2 men in high-vis step first, pistols low, shoulders too square for maintenance. Behind them, the woman from the alley glides in with the assurance of someone who charters consequences. Farther back, more boots, a dull chorus. End of the tour, she calls, voice steady. Leave with your lives and nothing else. Not an offer, a script. There's a chain of custody now, Laila says, camera steady at her shoulder, red light taped. Confiscating evidence on tape makes the story bigger. Every story has an editor, the woman replies. Tonight, I am yours.
Tariq counts crates, counts exits, counts seconds between drips. He plants a palm on a pallet jack, tests its play, the floodlights hum, fed from a panel wired dirty and fast at the cavern wall.
Power there, he breathes. Cut it, we all go blind. Blind favors the ones who memorize the room.
Not yet, Samir murmurs. We need the first cut to be clean.
The lead guard edges around a crate, intent a tight line. His beam kisses a stack label. Bore cores, 17 to 19, then lifts to Layla's face. Recognition stiffens his jaw.
On your knees, he orders, bags down.
Only if you set yours down first, Laila says. Trade's fair.
A chuckle leaks from the dark. The woman doesn't smile. She lifts 2 fingers. A second team melts off the wall near the power panel. Net move. They close on light and proof in one gesture.
Now. Tariq kicks the pallet jack toward the power team. Metal screams on stone. The 2 men flinch. Beams jerk wide. Samir grabs a crate lid and flings it. Wood smashes a beam and glass snows. Laila pivots and puts her shoulder into a stack. It skews, topples, the thud punching grit into the air. Lights, Tariq shouts.
He slams the main. The cavern drops to the color of breath. Shots crack, 3 blind, 1 aimed on reflex and memory. Stone spits, someone curses in pain. Water ticks louder.
Left-hand wall, 5 paces, cold seam under palm. Crates to the right, a waist-high river of shapes. Here, Samir whispers. His fingers brush Laila's sleeve. He presses a small cylinder into her hand. Chalk. She draws a line low along the stone as she moves, a pale thread. Behind them, boots slide. A beam tries to live and dies with a whine. You think darkness favors you? The woman asks the room. It favors habit. My people live here. We live where the truth is.
A crate lid prees up. Tariq's silhouette is a shadow among shadows. He works by fingertip and faith, fishing cores from foam and slipping them into his pack, each a geological diary in stone.
Take 2 sets, Laila says, redundancy. On it.
A knife of light lances on, someone's backup torch. It finds Samir's face at an oblique, turns his cheekbone to a blade. The man behind the light moves in a crabbed rush.
Samir steps into the beam rather than flinch from it. Elbow, palm, weight. He redirects the wrist, the light spins, hits the ceiling, dazzles the owner. The pistol clatters. Samir kicks it under a pallet. Stop, the woman says, and for a heartbeat, everything listens.
She speaks like weather, inevitable and unconcerned. The cavern leans in.
You cannot carry the boxes out. You cannot upload from here. You can die here, she says, or you can be guided out with only what you came in with. What I came in with. A camera with ghosts, a bag with names, lungs with air, a spine with reasons. We're leaving with the ground, Laila says. Enough to weigh the world.
From the far side, a softer light flickers, phosphor pale. Someone else is here. A figure steps into the suggestion of glow, hands up, a reflective strip on a sleeve lifting and falling with breath.
Don't shoot, the figure says. A man's voice, worker's cadence, I message you. Huda's channel, the anonymous sender. A mole wears overalls tonight. Name, Samir says low. Youssef, he says. Field tech. You asked for pins.
Beams tilt toward him. A muzzle twitches. The woman's hand lifts, halts the shot by a syllable. Let him finish, she says, curious.
Not here, Youssef pleads. They'll erase me by morning. There's a side sump. I stashed a ledger. Receipts that breathe. Ledger means paper that outruns wipes. Side sump means water, narrow choke points. Show us, Laila says. They flow with Youssef, not trusting fully, trusting enough. The chalk line under Laila's fingers becomes map and reassurance. The cavern narrows, the sound magnifies, drip, breath, grit. A slit opens into a sump chamber where groundwater glows faint under bacterial film. Youssef reaches into a runoff pipe and pulls a vacuum-sealed bundle, duct tape cross-hatched. He peels one strip with a fingernail and reveals the spine of a notebook swollen but legible. Inside, shift rosters with red asterisks, bore logs annotated void trending E, purchase orders for fill foam triple counted, a note, pins walked at Adnan's request. See call log 2104. This breathes. It's ugly and human and uncontestable. Copy the pages, Laila says, eyes on Tariq. He keeps the original. Youssef shakes his head. No copies. Take it. If they find it on me, I'm limestone. We won't be the reason, Laila says. We take pictures. You keep your breathing. They'll search my house, he says simply. They'll make my mother watch, please.
Ethics wedges into urgency. The woman's team is minutes behind. Their patience is expensively thin.
We carry risk like we carry rock cores, gently, aware they predate us. Half, Laila says. We split it. We leave enough to explain you if they search. We take enough to indict them if they kill you. Youssef nods. Tears he refuses to call that shining the salt in his eyes.
A shot punches the wall above the sump and showers them in calcite. The woman's voice floats in, tone unchanged. I am editing.
Back, Samir snaps, pulling them away from the visible path. Chalk.
Laila drags the line forward into a pinch where stone forces single file. Tariq squeezes through with the pack. Samir pauses and sets a crate lid wedged to look like rockfall. It will buy seconds, maybe 10.
Youssef, Laila says, hand on his sleeve. Do you have family with a couch in another city? A cousin, he says. In Tabuk, he thinks I fix radios. By dawn, you fix radios in Tabuk, she says. Go now, don't stop moving. I come with you, he says. I know the pipes. You live for us, Laila says, and means it like a verdict.
He hesitates once, then runs, ledger torn in two, half tucked under his shirt.
Samir nods. Good call, he says, not to flatter, to keep them moving. The chalk line leads them into a shoulder-width cleft where the stone sweats and the air grows tight. Breathing becomes an action. Tariq angles the cores so they don't chatter against each other. Behind them, boots grind the crate lid, men swear, a beam knifes through and dies. Another minute, Samir says, as if telling the Earth a schedule. 1 more minute is a continent if you cross it.
They slip into a second chamber. Smaller, roof lower. A power panel here too, older pre-gloss. A conduit box sits unlocked. Someone has left a coil of fiber, a field switch, an old sat puck with a handwritten tag. Birdlight backhaul, mate.
Tariq's grin snaps on like a match. Hello, bird. Art installation feeds status upstream on its own channel, he says, already stripping a cable with his teeth. No one thinks to throttle the bird. The woman's voice thins through the cleft, closer. You're running out of cavern. Give me 30 seconds, Tariq says, hand-stitching fiber with the speed of a prayer.
Samir takes position at the cleft, a silhouette with 2 stones and a patience that makes hard men nervous. Laila kneels beside Tariq, holds the puck, angles it toward a seam of sky that isn't but acts like one.
Link, Tariq says, low bandwidth, high latency, enough for text, images if we bleed. Bleed, Laila says, and they do. Maps and slices, memo pages, log screenshots, Yusef's ledger halves photographed against Samir's jacket, Core's catalog labels, the shimmer of water over limestone voids. Each file stutters into the world through a channel built to make light pretend to be birds. Boots grind at the cleft, a hand reaches in, groping. Samir traps it on the stone, wrist angled wrong, a pop like a stick breaking. A pistol clatters away into dark. No cry, trained men swallow sound, but a grunt stains the air. 10 more, Tariq says, sweat tracking dust. 8, 5. A flashlight punches through low and blind. It sketches Samir's ribs. A shot follows the light. Samir folds like a curtain catching wind and then returns, teeth bared, breath ragged. I'm up, he says. Don't get romantic. Blood has a hot copper smell that finds childhoods. Laila seals it out, seals the file list in. Sent, Tariq says. It lives.
The crate lid at the first pinch bursts. Men flow, trained, angry. The woman enters last, stepping neither fast nor slow, eyes already scanning the chamber they haven't reached. She knows the shape of choices.
Move, Laila says, and they pull the puck, yank the fiber, scorch the backhaul with a short that smells of burned dust.
They sprint the only way left, through a low arch where the ceiling licks hair. The floor tilts and turns into ankle-wrecking rubble. The chalk ends, the unknown begins.
Samir stumbles, his hand comes away black. He doesn't look at it. Later, he says to the wound. Tariq slows, shoulders under Samir's arm. We don't leave parts on the floor, he says. Not this time, not this team.
The passage squeezes to a stone mouth. Beyond it, sound opens. See machines, a faint horn. A grill blocks the exit, bolted to rock with 4 anchors.
Tariq asks. Hair pry, Laila says. Stubbornness. Samir pushes them aside. He braces one foot, puts a shoulder under the lowest bar, exhale long, lift. Metal sings. The bolt gives a whisper. He turns purple at the edges. The second bolt shears with a bark. The grill yawns enough to argue. Go, he says, voice flat, the word a wedge. Together, Laila snaps.
Go, he repeats. They need to chase something. Let it be me.
The woman's crew floods the chamber behind, shadows like a weather front. Time gives them 1 coin and waits.
You don't spend people if paper will do. 3 breaths, Laila says, then you come. He nods once, which is either a lie or a promise kept elsewhere.
Tariq wriggles through, bag shoved after. Laila dives, shoulders scraping stone, camera clacking against ribs. She hits a metal catwalk that shudders over a service canal. Air gulps cool in her lungs. The world has sky again, even if it's made of pipes and moonlight reflected off the seam.
Samir, she calls, arm through the gap. He shoves the grill wider in a roar, like a man arguing with gravity. He wedges his body through as a hand catches his ankle, the woman's, absurdly strong. Her nails are immaculate, her grip is not. Samir twists. Laila grabs his wrist. Tariq hauls the bag clear with his free hand. The grill snaps back down with a clang that steals everyone's hearing for a heartbeat.
They lie on the catwalk, stomachs kissing rust, hearts beating different drums that eventually find a common tempo.
You're hit, Laila says. Through and through, Samir says. Meet, not map. Clinic, Tariq asks. 2 watched, Samir says. I have a room, a fan that squeaks, a first aid kit from a war they pretend never happened. Evidence lives in 3 places now. The cloud via the bird, the cores in Tariq's pack, the ledger half under Yusef's shirt, the memo in Laila's bag, the meeting packs fractioned and hidden like passwords.
Behind the grill, voices swarm, dim like bees behind glass. The woman says something Laila can't catch. The tone says we continue. We always continue.
They rise. The catwalk leads to a ladder that climbs into a maintenance shaft lined in condensation and graffiti written by hands that work night shift. Words like oaths, drawings like anatomy. Up, Laila says. We keep moving until the story is heavier than they are.
They climb, and the city comes with them. Its hum, its heat, its appetite. Above, faint and stubborn, the birdlight flutters against the dark as if a flock is trying to remember how to be wild. Chapter 7, Terms of Ruin. The ladder empties onto a roof of corrugated tin that shivers with each step. Below, the harbor mutters. Beyond, the line throws back a fractured moon, its mirrored skin spidered from the night's rage.
This way, Samir says, jaw set against pain. He moves like a man who has practiced ignoring holes. A narrow gangway, a rusted door, 2 locks that remember his hands. Inside, a single room, low ceiling, a squeaking fan, a metal cot, a kettle that has boiled its life into the walls. Triaging becomes ritual. Bag down, evidence counted, wound checked, breath measured. Shirt, Laila says. Samir peels it back. The bullet tore a line through muscle, high and clean. No bubbling breath. No arterial spray. She irrigates with bottled water, threads a pressure bandage tight. You'll hate me for a day, then forgive me. I pre-forgive everyone, he says, eyes on the ceiling. Saves time.
Tariq lays out their gains, 2 cores tagged BH18 and BH19, the memo Huda smuggled, photos of plant logs with suppressed alarms, slices of the raw stratigraphy, sign-in pages from the risk committee.
Half of Yusef's ledger, pages still damp with sump air. Enough to nail hands to tables. Not enough to stop hands from moving first. They'll come here? Tariq asks. They will, Samir says. Not because they know it, because they know me. A man sleeps where his ghosts are trained to find him. Then we don't sleep, Laila says. We push the story beyond reach, and we force every sensor in this city to scream.
Her phone flashes without sound. Same anonymous address. They're going to finish it. East Barrier Pile Field B, 320. Hurry. A second ping, no civilians if the pumps die. A third, choice is yours.
The saboteurs, Tariq says, they'll flood the foundations, collapse a whole sector. Truth versus lives. The false binary tyrants sell. The honest ones saboteurs bring. Gear, Laila says, standing. We go. Security will be thick, Samir warns. So is conscience.
They move under the city's skin, following service bands that smell of metal and brine. Every vent whispers pursuit. Every junction tastes of decision. At Pile Field B, night opens into a forest of steel cylinders driven into eaten stone, their tops welded with plates and numbers. Work lights throw long bars of shadow. Beyond the barrier, the Red Sea breathes against concrete ribs.
Tariq points. See the drops? Valve manifolds. Kill those. Pumps cavitate. Foundations heave like a drunk at prayer. He tilts his head. And there.
3 figures move low along the manifold trench, faces hidden behind scarves. One carries a coil of det cord. Another hunched over a junction box with wire cutters and a thief's concentration. The third watches the world with a rifle that prefers to sleep.
Cater, Laila says softly. She knows him by the shoulders, braced, guilty, convinced. She steps into the light, hands wide. We need to talk.
The rifle finds her chest like a tide finding shore. The wireman glances up, aghast at interruption, then returns to his bite marks on insulation. The coil bearer's eyes are old. They weigh and don't lighten.
You shouldn't be here, Cater says. We sent you the time to get you away. You sent me a choice, Laila replies. You're about to make mine for me. We stop a crime against the land, Kader says. We've begged, protested, leaked. They edit the world. The ground will speak tonight. The ground already spoke. It swallowed children. You'll kill people, she says. Workers, security, those men there. She points to a pair of guards smoking on a catwalk, their posture bored, their lives intact. We warned off shifts, the wireman mutters. Their bosses kept them in place to make us hesitate. Then don't give them their martyr shot, Laila says. We have enough to force evacuation, to force a pause longer than a press cycle. Cater gestures at the cylinders, and when the pause ends, they pump the sea out of rock and lay steel deeper into bones. Let us do both, Laila says. We push the story now, maps, logs, ledger, names, and we trigger alarms citywide without fire. If this manifold screams to the world for 30 minutes, the governor can't not evacuate. Your det cord stays a photo, not a tomb.
Salt air threads the gap, work lights buzz. A gull laughs like a drunk.
Crowds ignore sirens, Kader says. They've been trained to hear propaganda. Then we hijack what they do watch, Tariq says, eyes bright with a wicked idea. The bird light, the promenade screens, the mirror walls, we paste evacuate across a city that can't bear an ugly story on its face. Impossible, the coil bearer says. Not after tonight, Tariq says. We touched the bird light's back hall. It's a maintenance vein into their artery. They trust us, or they bury us. There's no third doorway. You have 10 minutes, Cotter says. Then the C votes.
Tariq drops to a knee at the manifold console, fingers already moving. He clips in a pocket interface, its LEDs blinking like a lie detector. Laila shoulders her camera, frames Cotter, face tight, jaw set, a moral geometry too sharp to hold for long.
Help me sell restraint, she says. Stand with me on a feed. Tell them you will not kill if the city listens.
I am not a symbol, Cotter replies. Then be a person people can believe, she says. Those die slower. Tariq's code waltzes through the bird light's sleepy authentication. Vendor creds hard-coded where they shouldn't be, a heartbeat ping that accepts a forged reply, a content API that assumes it's talking to art, not alarms. Keep me clean, he says. We push from a throwaway box through a disposable relay. They'll still smell me if they lean in. Lean later, Laila says, scanning the catwalk. The smoking guards stub their cigarettes, stroll toward a checkpoint as if boredom were a uniform. Cater nods once, you have 9.
The bird light flickers. For a breath, the flock forgets how to be birds. Then the sky writes itself with letters 10 meters tall over the promenade. Evacuate Pile Field B. Structural failure risk. This is not a drill. The words march, then hold, then bloom across mirrored panels as if the city were blushing with its own shame.
Shouts rise. A whistle blows, then 10. Sirens agree for once with truth. The smoking guards stare at a mirror that orders them to move and do. It works. For a minute it works. Then the city fights back. Screens stutter to heritage showcase, resilience innovation. Preloaded platitudes jam a square peg into a bleeding hole. The message corrupts, splits, half evacuate, half vision. A truth and lie palimpsest that makes the eye tired. They're overriding content, Tariq says. I can hold 1 in 10. I need a second channel. The harbor VMS, the coil bearer says unexpectedly. Fishing fleet alerts. They ignore it during festivals. Not tonight. Tariq pivots code, hitching the birdlight feed to the VMS relay, then piggybacking onto Promenade PA. He shoves a waveform through a microphone that's never told unpleasant stories. A voice Laila's low, carved by urgency, echoes across water. Evacuate the promenade and pile field B immediately. Safety breach. This is a live structural alert.
People move. Not enough, never enough, but the tide shifts from stay to watch to go to live. Security scrambles, have to corral, have to comply. Somewhere, a supervisor makes a choice his bonuses won't love.
8, Cotter says. You counted slow, Tariq mutters, sweat wicking his hairline. Hold your fireworks.
The woman arrives as if conjured by the word hold. She stands at the trench lip, flanked by 2 men who don't bother to hide weapons now that the city is yelling. Her eyes take in evacuate, the moving crowd, the det cord looped like a question around Cotter's wrist.
You're laundering terror through public safety, she says to Laila, genuinely impressed. It's creative. It's mercy, Laila replies. Mercy breeds precedent, the woman says. We can't afford a city that believes it can be frightened into truth. She means we can't afford proof that works. Stand down, the woman tells Cotter. We will negotiate a pause. We will review geology. We will restore trust. Cater's mouth twists. You'll buy time until cameras find a new toy. He thumbs a small detonator. The click is tiny. The effect is vast. The wireman flinches. Laila's stomach falls as if the city floor vanished a second time. Don't, she says, stepping between Cotter and the trench. The rifle swings up on reflex. She keeps moving, closes the distance until the barrel meets the bone beside her heart. Look at me.
The yard narrows to 2 faces. Cutter's eyes are oceans with storms. Laila's are a cliff that learned to hold.
You want to be the man who gave them a headline, she says, soft as sand, or the man who forced them to listen. He breathes once, twice. The coil bearer squeezes eyes shut. The wireman whispers a prayer that edits no one. Traffic is clearing, Tariq says into the space. Egress routes are flowing. We've bought 15 minutes, maybe 20. Cater's thumb loosens on the switch. They will rebuild. Then we will publish again, Laila says, and again, until rebuilding means rightly, not fast.
The woman tilts her head, curious as a cat discovering fire. "You do love the long game," she says. Her hand flicks. One of her men raises a compact tube and hisses a dart that catches Cotter in the shoulder.
He staggers. The detonator skitters into the trench, landing on steel with a sound that turns everyone's bones to salt. "Don't touch it," Tariq yells, already moving because not touching it is a luxury for a different night.
Cater collapses to a knee, eyes glassing with a sedative's fog. The wireman lunges for the device. The woman's other man fires a second dart. The wireman crumples, hand inches short. The detonator begins to slide toward a grate where water hurries.
Laila dives. The world compresses to a rectangle of plastic and a clock with no numbers, her fingers close around it as it kisses the lip. The grate yawns, hungry. If it falls, the water does the rest. If it stays, so does the question. She rises slowly, hands up, the device resting on her palms like a violent egg. "Everyone stops," she says, "right now."
They do. Even the sea seems to listen.
"Take your men," Laila tells the woman. "Get out. We keep this city standing tonight. Tomorrow it may not forgive you, but it will remember you didn't drown it." "You are negotiating with a lit match," the woman says, delighted, "and yet you do not shake." "I shake when I'm safe," Laila answers. "I haven't been safe in years."
Tariq edges to the manifold console, fingers ghosting a bypass that will make pressure relief valves sing instead of scream. He nods once at Laila without looking at her.
The woman watches two truths weigh each other. The optics of shooting the journalist holding a bomb versus the optics of letting her win a night. She tastes both, then chooses the one with calories later. She lifts her hand. "Withdraw."
Her men fade. She does not. She steps closer, shoes silent on concrete until she can speak into Laila's air without sending her words elsewhere.
"Adnan will offer you a trade," she murmurs. "Names for names. Don't take it. He doesn't understand the price of memory. I do." "What do you want?" Laila asks. "A city that functions," the woman says, "and enemies who keep me intelligent. A smile like a closed knife. Don't die before I can use you."
She steps back, melts into shadow, and is gone. Proof that some people are contracts written in flesh.
Cater sags, sedative gnawing at resolve. The coil bearer kneels, eyes wet with rage that can't find a clean target. The rifle leans, ashamed. Laila sets the detonator on the concrete, gently as if it could take offense. Tariq squints at it, breath shallow. "Dead man," he says, "fails safe to detonate if you let go." He glances at her hands. "Don't move." Cold walks her spine, fingers go opinionated about blood. "I can't hold this forever," she says. "Maybe you don't have to," Tariq replies, eyes scanning the case. "If I can shunt the trigger path to ground with a sacrificial line." Boots, not many, too synchronized to be saboteurs. Adnan Shah arrives without hurry, tie straight, eyebrow scar quiet. He considers the tableau, woman with bomb, man with code, sedated idealist, and smiles with everything except mercy. "Miss Al-Hakim," he says, "you do like center stage." "I like cities without mass graves," she answers, fingers burning. "Allow me to help," Adnan says, stepping closer than a sane man should to explosive intention. "We both prefer outcomes over theater." He means, "I prefer you indebted." "Take one more step and we test your appetite for martyrdom," Tariq says, not looking up from the detonator's seam.
Adnan stops. He lifts his hands, palms empty, as if auditioning for humanity. "I can arrange a power bleed on the manifold that will make your evacuate look like prudence, not panic," he says lightly. "The governor will owe me. You can publish your documents and feel righteous. Everyone leaves with dignity."
Dignity is the word men use when they mean leverage. "What do you want?" Laila says, fingers screaming. "Precisely. A copy of your chain," he says. "Not to destroy it." His eyes are insulted at the suggestion, to anticipate it. He smiles, a curator of outcomes. "I don't like surprises." Cater coughs a laugh that tastes of sedative and bile. "He'll prune the tree while thanking you for its shade." Tariq meets Laila's eyes for the first time since she grabbed the bomb. Sweat beads his lip. "I can maybe cut the dead man path," he says. "Maybe. If I fail, we'll be a rumor." Options. Trust Adnan and poison the evidence. Trust Tariq and bet on wire. Keep holding and become a statue. "Do it," Laila tells Tariq. "And Adnan, listen carefully. If we live, you'll read our story before you hear it from anyone else. That's all the courtesy you get."
Tariq slides a flathead into a seam, fishing for a metal hair he can kiss to ground. Adnan watches, delighted by skill even when it aims at his throat. Cotter drifts, eyelids heavy. The coil bearer prays under breath. The sea keeps its appointment with the wall.
On 3, Tariq says, 1, 2. Laila lets the world slow until fingers and heart agree to a single beat. 3.
A spark skips. The device clicks once, twice, deciding whether to be a god or a toy. Chapter 8, Second Shock. The spark dies. The detonator settles into a sulk, light winking out as if it has decided to be a rock again.
Grounded, Tariq says, voice thin. Dead man path cut. Air returns like a loan forgiven. Fingers turn back into fingers. Laila sets the device on the concrete. No one touches it.
Adnan exhales through his nose, almost a laugh. Competence, he says, as if tasting a rare fruit. Now let's tidy your mess.
Our mess, Laila asks.
Our mess, he repeats. You shouted fire in a crowded theater. They ran. Good. They also trampled. Bad. Help me open lanes, then send your documents to the world. We'll each pretend the other acted for the public good. He wants co-authorship of mercy. Open the lanes, Laila says. You don't need us for that. Adnan lifts his phone and says a sentence in the language of men who have switches for weather. Sirens modulate. Security lines ripple, then bow open like a book. People stream out of Pilefield B toward the harbor, not fast, not panicked, urgent.
Cater blinks through sedative haze. You saved their lives, he says to Laila, the words fogged but true.
You didn't take them, she replies. We both step toward daylight. Tonight, that's enough. 2 medics in gray arrive from nowhere with a stretcher that never complains. They load Cater with a competence that doesn't ask for names. The coil bearer watches, jaw a trapdoor welded shut. The wireman, dart still in, snores softly. A man who will wake to a different religion. Tariq pockets the neutralized detonator and scribbles "SIM only" on tape across its face. For the lab, he says, when we publish, we want photographs that embarrass engineers. Evidence has a gravity. It pulls narrative into orbit. Keep adding mass. The promenade groans. A long, sullen noise rolls down mirrored ribs. Adnan looks up, frowns, taps his phone. That shouldn't, he begins. An alarm knifes the air from deeper within the line. Steady, low, not the high chatter of evacuation. Structural. A second voice, pump spooling up, then coughing, then biting into seawater like a dog that won't let go. Pressure surge, Tariq says. Someone bypassed my reliefs. Your engineers? Laila asks Adnan. Not on my orders, he says, face set to stone. They fix optics while someone else fixes failure. A second collapse wants a body count. Back to the manifold, Laila snaps. Now.
They take the trench at a run. Work lights flail. The sea claws the barrier in a slow, patient fury. On the console, Tariq's override is alive but mauled. Process lines rerouted around his code like clever vines. Someone is ghosting him from upstream, skipping authentication by being the person who issues it.
I'm watching a god mode, he says. They're forcing head pressure to shake piles. Where? Laila asks. Bay segment C2, he says. East of us, old limestone caves under the promenade. If they hammer hard enough, the vault roof will let go. Adnan is already dialing. Cut feed to C2, he says to whoever owes him money. He listens, face cooling further. No, cut it. He hangs up. They're locked out, either sedition or stupidity. Saboteurs inside the system, or arrival rewiring consequences. We split, Laila says. Tariq, hold this console. Push every relief you can. Adnan, open evacuation east. I'll film at C2. Evidence is proof, proof is break. You don't go alone, Tariq says. Samir, Laila begins, realizes the room is missing his steady gravity. He limps up, bandage already spotted. Present, he says. Slower, still present. You and me, C2, Laila says. Tariq, if we don't come back, you dump everything through the bird, the harbor, the mosque loudspeakers, whatever still sings. On it, he says. I'll make Friday prayers say subscribe for updates.
They race along the waterline, through corridors that smell of brine and ambition. The city shakes its mirrors, not because they matter, but because shaking makes people look up. The C2 vault opens into a maintenance gallery where the ceiling sweats and the world hums with pumps that push sea against land.
A crew is already at the main, 4 in high vis, 2 with tablet rigs, 1 with an expression that hides fear with procedure. A foreman barks into a radio, voice sawed raw. I don't have authorization to, he sees Laila's camera, recalculates. Who are you? Journalist, she says. Your pumps are about to turn the promenade into a sinkhole. Who's upstream? Upstream is shouting, he says. They tell me to hold. My gauges tell me to run. Trust the metal, Samir says. Humans lie when afraid.
On a catwalk above, a man in a contractor's vest crouches by a fiber junction, fingers fast, eyes flicking everywhere except where guilt is. He's patched a loop in with a pirate's glee. His wrist tattoo, 2 circles, 1 broken, marks him as the group Kader won't name to strangers.
Off the fiber, Laila calls. Her voice carries like a thrown tool. Now. He works faster. Samir takes the stairs, one hand on the rail, the other on the memory of a shoulder that doesn't hurt. The man glances up, computes the distance wrong, and keeps coding. Samir doesn't tackle. He pinches the man's ear and lifts. The body follows the ear. Even brave men duck when their pain is small and sudden. Who paid you? Samir asks, conversational. Don't lie, it wearies me. The man's mouth says nothing useful. His hands twitch, muscle memory searching for a kill command. Cut the jumper, Laila tells the foreman. If he reconnects, you bolt him to the catwalk with zip ties and file a safety incident for tripping. The foreman laughs once, the kind that cuts fear. He gestures, a tech kills the pirate loop. Screen's quiet. Pressure trending down, Tariq reports in Laila's ear. Voice small over distance. Hold them another minute and we're out of the death cone. Hold.
Lights flicker. The console text chat populates with a single line from an internal address. Resilience requires purification. The foreman freezes. Samir's eyes sharpen. Laila lifts the camera and catches the line, time-stamped, sender masked.
They're going to try again, Samir says, from the next junction. Lock this box, Laila says to the foreman. Put a wrench through the handle. Paperwork can apologize later. He does. The wrench bites metal with a sound that says someone decided.
The pumps settle into a responsible hum. The vault breathes easier. Overhead, the mirrors stop hissing like rain. Tariq's voice returns, looser. We're stable. Evac is halfway. I'm pushing your dock pack to 3 outlets. One's in Madrid, one's in Nairobi, one is a blogger in Karachi who sleeps never.
Hila asks. She made it to her mother's sister's flat, he says. Number changed. SIM new. She says the tea is too sweet.
Paper stubborn. People stubborn too.
A different shudder walks the floor. Not pumps, not pressure. Explosive. Small, controlled, somewhere inside the promenade crowd. A pop, a scream, the tinny crackle of a cheap radio celebrating. Diversion, Samir says. Someone doesn't like our headline. They run again because the story sprints and the body must follow. Up into the night where evacuate trades places with resilience in mirrored text wars. Smoke threads the air near an archway where planter boxes splinter and a kiosk smolders. On the kiosk roof, a figure stands with a loudhailer and a phone. He broadcasts himself. The crowd film him broadcasting. He screams a sermon about false cities, true deserts, debts owed to sand. In his hand, a small trigger glows like a sick firefly. Get him down, Laila says, before he turns one dead man into 5. Security hesitates. They want orders with nouns that protect careers. The woman from the alley isn't here to write verbs. Samir steps onto the kiosk roof by using a trash bin as a ladder. He moves like a long-ignored law waking. The man swings the loudhailer. It becomes a club. Samir takes the hit, turns it into a handshake, and pulls. They tumble together in a choreography that breaks plastic and a little dignity. The trigger skitters under the kiosk as if ashamed to have been considered. Laila films the fall, the handcuff zip ties, the way the crowd's expression shifts from watch to go. She narrates once, low into her mic. Non-state actor incites panic amid evacuation. No detonation. Evacuation continues. Facts, not poetry. Poetry later.
Her phone pings with delivery receipts. The Madrid outlet posts the first package, the lines hidden void. Photos unspool. Cores, memos, strati slices, meeting packs. A clip of Adnan saying outcomes joins a clip of Huda's memo with AS initialed. Comments flood in every language that knows how to name a lie.
Nairobi's up, Tariq says. Karachi's blogger pinned you to the top with a thread titled, Don't Build on a Lie. He writes with venom. I like him. The chain is heavy enough to bend a wrist. Keep it from snapping.
The city's official feed counters with a press conference at a table too long for comfort. A spokesperson speaks of anomalies and community. Laila's stream steals their viewers one by one like a tide pulling a beach.
Adnan arrives beside them with the calm of someone who has bathed between disasters. He watches the kiosk arrest, the evac lanes, the mirror text blaring evacuate over vision. For a moment, he looks tired. It lasts a heartbeat. You won your hour, he says. Spend it wisely. We're not done, Laila replies.
Nor am I, he says, but unlike my colleagues, I admire a fair fight.
He will change the venue, not the game.
Layla's phone vibrates against her palm. Unknown number, local. She answers with a word that isn't hello.
Ms. Al-Hakim, a man says, voice sandpaper smooth. I represent the governor's office. We request your presence at an emergency review in 30 minutes. Bring your evidence. Leave your camera at the door. Transparency, she asks. A performance of it, he says. Do you prefer to perform on stage or outside in the noise? Inside, they can corner you. Outside, they can ignore you. Choose the battlefield that lets you bleed where people can see. We'll come, she says, with the documents, with the names. And with counsel, Samir adds, looming, who bites metal. By all means, the voice says, brittle. 30 minutes, South Admin.
For a beat, the promenade softens. People move with purpose instead of shrieks. The bird light steadies on evacuate, a flock frozen mid-flight. The air smells of melted plastic and the tin pit of adrenaline subsiding.
Package a second dump, Laila says. Contracts, risk minutes, payroll overlaps, any line that ties Adnan's initials to signatures. He's not the only AS in Saudi Arabia, Tariq says. We name and footnote. We footnote, she says. We do not slander. We don't need to.
Adnan watches her mouth shape footnote like a threat. He smiles with polite despair. You'll be the death of nuance, he says.
Nuance is for novels, she replies. Tonight is for facts. The core's in Tariq's pack. The ledger half, the memo, the meeting pack, the log screenshots, the sat images of sinkholes overlaid with bore pins walked 40 meters north. It is a spine. It can walk on its own if cut free.
They head toward South Admin along a service hall where old posters promise zero harm in fonts that no one edits. The woman from the alley steps out of a doorway like a rumor turned into a person.
Invited to the grown-up table, she asks, amused. Careful, they set knives as favors. We brought our own, Layla says. The woman's eyes flick to Samir's bandage, then to Tariq's pack, then to Laila's camera. You'll be searched, she says. They'll take your drives and hand you NDAs with pretty letterhead. We're publishing as we walk, Layla replies. What they take is theater. Good, the woman says. She straightens Laila's scarf without asking, a small invasive kindness. Inside, remember, they call it review to avoid saying blame. Don't let them rename your nouns.
Security gates yawn. A receptionist with the posture of a monk asks for their names and smiles like a cashier ringing up a storm. They surrender nothing but time. A conference room swallows them, cold and bright, full of suits whose wrists have never carried weight.
A governor sits at the head of the table, hair perfect, smile calibrated for funerals and ribbon cuttings. Beside him, counsel, risk, investor liaison, two generals who smell of leather and patience. Adnan sits not at the table, but at its shoulder, the place of someone useful and disliked. Ms. Al-Hakim, the governor says, hands steepled, voice gentle. We grieve, we repair, we ensure stability. Help us do that. Laila sets the documents, not originals, not all on the table. Karst belt under pile field B, pins moved, alarms suppressed, second attempt averted, names attached, we publish.
Before publishing, counsel says, share the full chain so we can verify. We'll prepare a statement that shows unity.
Unity against physics, Samir asks, bold. The governor gestures at Adnan. Mr. Shah? Adnan clasps his hands. Errors were made, he says, the phrase tasting strange in his mouth. I have recommended a voluntary suspension of work in the affected corridor. I propose a joint audit with an international panel. He looks at Laila. You may name it as you like. I will even sit for questions. He offers a piece that costs him now and pays him later. Credibility as currency. We accept the audit, Laila says. We reject any delay in publishing. Counsel leans forward. Publishing now risks panic. Panic has already happened, Laila says. Silence built it.
A door at the far end opens without a knock. The woman from the alley walks in as if she's always had a chair. No one invites her. No one stops her. Power introduces itself.
Governor, she says, smile citrus. You forgot to invite me. We are in crisis session, he begins. Exactly, she says. She takes a seat and lays a single folder on the table. Before we all coordinate our stories, you should read the one that is about to go live. She slides the folder to the governor. Inside, printed screenshots of Laila's posts, the Madrid spread, the Nairobi op-ed title, We've Seen This Before, the Karachi thread annotated with 1,000 furious hearts. Control is over, she says mildly. Now there is only consequence. The room learns a new word at the same time. Aftermath.
The governor's aide whispers in his ear. His face rearranges itself into something that can talk to cameras without crying. He taps the table with 2 fingers. "We will suspend construction immediately in the affected sectors," he says. "We will commission an independent audit. We will cooperate with all investigations." He looks at Laila. "And we will thank the journalists whose vigilance saved lives tonight."
Samir's lips part in a silent laugh that isn't kind. Tariq stares at his shoes so the grin doesn't ruin the moment. Counsel interjects, desperate to salvage a shard, on the condition that Ms. Al-Hakim and her colleagues share all source materials for proper chain of custody. "We will share with the audit," Laila says, "not with entities named in the documents." Adnan inclines his head. "Wise," he says, "painful but wise."
The woman leans toward Laila, voice for one person. "They will try softer tools now," she says. "Contracts, friendships, safety briefings. Don't mistake softness for love."
"I rarely do," Laila says. "One more thing before we call a victory a draw." "Huda," Laila says. "Console operator, she stays safe. No detention, no questioning without counsel." "We don't," counsel begins. "Done," the governor says. "And any other employees who assisted. We are not the villain in our own story." Stories assign villains after the credits.
Phones buzz, synchronized. The governor looks at his screen and goes gray. The room hums with the energy of something large moving toward them.
Hila asks. "Satellite imagery," Adnan says, reading over counsel's shoulder. "Third party. Someone bought a pass and aimed it at East Sector C 20 minutes ago. They're posting time-lapse overlays of subsidence." "The internet's a new kind of gravity," Samir says. "It pulls roofs down even when you prop them with speeches." The governor stands. "Press conference in 20, he says. Ms. Al-Hakim, you will stand with me." "As press," she asks. "As witness," he says. "We will pretend to agree. Stand in the frame or stay outside it and risk erasure. Sometimes you steal a stage to keep your voice from being dubbed later." "I'll stand," Laila says, "and then I'll leave to finish the story."
They file out. The woman lingers and murmurs to Adnan, a duet of sharks. Tariq squeezes Laila's arm once, proud, scared. Samir adjusts his bandage and looks for a chair he can sit in without leaving blood.
"After this," Tariq says, "we get out of the city, regroup where mirrors don't show our faces to the wrong gods." "After this," Laila says, "one more hour, then we vanish long enough to write."
They step into the corridor that leads to the briefing room. Cameras bloom like flowers seeking sun. Microphones bristle. The governor strides toward lights. Laila falls in beside him, the woman shadowing them like a note in a ledger. Halfway down the hall, a ceiling panel pops. A small, neat device drops, hits carpet, and begins to count in a language made of red. Chapter 9, The Corridor of Names.
The device ticks in red like a heartbeat that forgot mercy. The corridor inhales. Security freezes for one fatal second. The second bureaucracy always spends deciding. "Back!" Samir snaps, already moving. He yanks the governor by the elbow harder than protocol allows and shoves him toward a junction alcove. "Wall. Now. If it's a killer, we duck. If it's theater, we own the stage. If it's both, we live in name." Tariq drops to a knee, eyes eating the device. "Pressure plate? No. Proc sensor? Maybe. Red means armed, not counting." Laila raises her camera. "Device deployed in press corridor," she says into the mic. Voice measured so fear has nothing to step on. Security in motion. Governor moved to cover.
The woman from the alley steps forward without ceremony, toes the panel aside, and lifts the device with 2 fingers by a plastic hoop like a teacher plucking gum from a desk. She cocks her head.
"Training tool," she says, "meant to frighten and film." She tilts it. The red tick dies. "Film that." "Not a bomb, a bid. Someone wants chaos to edit our nouns." "Clear the ceiling," Adnan says. "All panels now." He looks at Laila. "You'll say it wasn't a bomb." "I'll say what it was," she replies. "And who made it be here?"
They spill into the briefing room with adrenaline riding behind their ribs. Cameras stare with glassy, reptile patience. The governor mounts the dais, smile reset to sober. Laila stands to his left. Not behind, not in front, inside the frame. Samir finds a chair against the wall that doesn't stain when he leans. Tariq ghosts to the comms rail, hands flirting with cables he doesn't touch.
The governor begins, voice pitched to Carrie. "Tonight we witnessed a structural anomaly. We mourn those harmed and celebrate those saved. Construction in affected sectors is suspended. An independent audit begins at dawn." He uses "we" 5 times in 30 seconds. He is still learning which nouns belong to him. And we acknowledge the role of journalists in ensuring transparency, he adds, a line that tastes like medicine. Ms. Al-Hakim. Laila steps to the mic. Karst belt. Pins moved in planning documents. Plant alarms suppressed. Attempts to force a second collapse were prevented. Evidence has been shared with international outlets. We will publish full chains of custody.
The room shifts. Reporters lean forward, officials lean back. The woman stands by the door and smiles without showing teeth.
Names, a voice barks. Who suppressed alarms? Suppressions logged to account alias AS, Laila says. We have workstation IDs and timestamps. The audit will verify. We will report. Saboteurs, another voice. Are you coordinating with them? No, she says. We negotiated an evacuation instead of a detonation. That is not coordination. It is triage. We oppose murder in every uniform. Say it so clean that nobody can twist it without leaving fingerprints.
A screen on the sidewall flickers. Tariq's eyebrows jump. The feed is piggybacked on a dormant input he didn't touch. A new video fills the panel. A masked figure speaking in a room that looks like a storage unit dressed for revolution. Blanket hung behind, lantern haloing the edges.
You've been lied to by temples of glass, the figure says, tone rehearsed. We will finish the fall. No more petitions, no more audits, except the desert. Hijack, Tariq murmurs, then louder, mute screen 4. The AV tech pounds a console. The feed ignores him. The masked figure continues. Last line meant to brand the night. We are the fault line in your mirror.
The woman's expression doesn't change. Adnan's does, a micro-flinch, not at the threat, but at losing stage control. The governor blanches.
Laila takes the mic back without asking. The masked feed is not live from here, she says. It is a pre-recorded hijack. We condemn any future attempt to harm civilians. Evacuations remain in effect for east sectors. Don't let them paste your face beside a threat and call it the same noun. The governor closes the briefing fast, promises dawn actions, ushers everyone out with handshakes that feel like receipts. Doors swing. The corridor swallows them again. Outside, the city slides toward a wary pre-dawn. The birdlight dims to a pulse. Ambulances trade sirens for idle hums. The sea keeps its schedule. Out, Samir says. We find a hole that isn't on any plan and write until our fingers forget fear. Tariq's phone buzzes awake with a flock of push alerts. Madrid posts a second piece. Nairobi publishes an editorial roasting the phrase structural anomaly. Karachi uploads a side-by-side of renderings and stratigraphy with a caption, build truth, not mirrors. The chain is walking without us. Good. Let it stride. Adnan falls in step as if the hallway belongs to him because he knows where it bends. The masked feed is not my team, he says. If my word means anything to you. It means you felt the need to say that, Laila replies. I can get you the contractor list for the fiber backhaul you love so much, he says lightly. Some vendors sell ports twice, one to us, one to enemies. He never hands paper without wanting a lung. In exchange, she asks, nothing you haven't already promised, he says. A courtesy. Let me read your next drop 30 minutes before the world does. You'll read it when Nairobi does, she says. You can multitask.
They hit a junction where the building's veins split. Staff exit right, secure parking left, service down. The woman is already there, as if she doesn't walk, but arranges reality to arrive under her shoes.
Down, she says, chin at the service route. Cameras die there. Helpful, Samir asks. I prefer intelligent enemies, she says, and I owe you one detonation you didn't allow. They drop into the service corridor, a world of gray paint, squeaky wheels, and men with lanyards who know where the real city breathes. The woman's footsteps keep time behind them like a second pulse.
20 minutes later, they push into a laundrette that had dreams once and now washes uniforms for dreams that don't sweat. The back room smells of detergent and exhausted neon. A hulking washer thrums. A cat sleeps on a wire crate, convinced of immortality.
Samir drops into a chair and exhales the pain he has been renting. Laila spreads the evidence again. Tariq opens a laptop and births a document. The line, receipts. It is both title and prayer. Present tense. No purple. Show the chain. Name each choice. Leave space for a reader to be angry in their own language. Open with the sinkhole. One paragraph, Laila says. Then straight to pins. Then the logs. Then the ledger. Then the attempt tonight. Thread Huda's line. They told me to be solution-oriented. Timeline sidebar, Tariq adds. Fingers playing percussion on keys. Emails week -6. Investor Roadshow week -4. Pin shift week -3. Alarm suppressed 2018. Collapse 2020. Hijack attempt 240. Verbs, Samir says, eyes closed. Avoid caused until the audit says it. Use correlated, preceded, signed, acknowledged, suppressed. Verbs that hold.
The cat opens one eye, judges the page count, and sleeps again. The washer hits a spin cycle that sounds like an old train thinking about leaving.
A new email lands in Laila's encrypted inbox. No subject, attachment, a voice memo. She plays it. A man's voice, tired, mid-level, the sound of a conscience clearing a throat. Minutes of risk committee. They told us to note public assurance measures instead of void mitigation. We moved pins on paper so investors wouldn't see cavities under pile B AS signed. I won't be in the office at dawn. Not just paper, a voice with breath, a man who will need to disappear. Strip identifiers, Tariq says. Pitch shift and spectrogram scrubbing. We keep the words, we protect the lungs. Laila transcribes, marks timestamps, notes the sigh before AS, the way shame flattens syllables. She adds a line, voice authenticated by cross-reference to meeting rosters, anonymized at source's request.
3 short taps at the laundrette's side door. Not urgent, exact. Samir's head comes up. The woman opens it with the authority of someone whose hands don't knock often. A young man slides in, a face Laila doesn't know, but his fear wears a uniform she recognizes.
Youssef, he says, not his name tonight, eyes on the ledger half peeking from Laila's bag. My cousin drove me. I brought the call logs, photos. They'll notice, but not yet. He is intact. The memo lives in both halves now. Their chain has siblings. You did enough, Laila says. Take cash, change cities, don't read comments. I want to see them fall, he says. You will, Samir says, from far away where your mother scolds you over tea.
Pages spool, maps are captioned. The image of the Boer core labeled BH-19 becomes a shrine and a weapon. Huda's memo sits like a spine between them. The risk pack sign-in with A. Shah circled in red, digital ink, anchors one corner like a prayer mat, facing accountability.
Citations attached, Tariq says. 3 mirrors for each file. If one host drops, 2 hold. If 2 drop, the blogger in Karachi never sleeps. Laila hovers over publish the way you hold a detonator that saves rather than kills. Once we press this, there's no friendly edit, she says. This is the friendly edit, Samir says. The rest of the world is the comments. She presses.
The document blooms into the net. In Madrid, a headline flips from breaking to proof. In Nairobi, the editorial glues the new piece under an old memory, a dam that cracked in a different decade. In Karachi, the thread's top comment reads, if you move pins on paper, the ground keeps receipts.
Adnan sends a message that contains only a punctuation mark. Then another, coffee at noon, neutral ground. He's already rebuilding in the middle of collapse. Laila mutes him. She texts Huda, safe? A minute later, too much tea, mother won't sleep, I am alive, she breathes.
The woman's phone chirps once. She scans, lips tightening, then relaxing into a smile meant for private rooms. Your masked friend went live again, she says, this time from a moving vehicle. They promise a final gesture at dawn.
What kind of gesture? Tariq asks. Theatrical, she says, and therefore costly. We won't let the morning write itself in blood. We intercept, Laila says. We've spent the night proving paper. We spend the dawn stopping bodies. Birdlight still on our side, Tariq asks. Half, he says. Enough to write don't across the sky if someone tries to sing. Then we write don't where mirrors hear.
They pack in a rhythm now. Evidence into redundant pouches, drives into socks, cameras wrapped in shirts that don't reflect. The city beyond the laundrette starts to color. The hour when heaters click, when muezzins clear throats, when men who built lies discover morning breathes too.
Where asks? The east arches, Laila says. Their video shows columns, cable run along the ceiling, salt bloom on the base, C-sector promenade. They'll try to collapse a span on live stream. They hit the service road in a small borrowed van that smells like lemons and old rope. The woman drives, hands easy, eyes busy. Samir rides shotgun, bleeding less but not none. Tariq sits on the floor with a laptop balanced on an upturned crate, tethering to a directional antenna he's taped to a mop handle. Laila films the dawn smudging the mirror, narrates to herself in sentences she files for later. Present tense, no romance. Don't forget mercy.
The east arches rise out of the morning like a rib cage. A cluster of phones points at a van parked at the base. The masked figure stands on the roof, arms out, camera on a gimbal, microphone taped to a broomstick. Theater built from a hardware store. A coil of det cord snakes toward a column where someone has painted "Return to Sand."
Not today, Laila says. Tariq plugs into the public address loop and hijacks the feed a third time. The bird light stutters awake. The mirror wall flashes "don't" in letters so huge the morning flinches. The PA coughs, crackles, then carries Layla's voice. Move away from the arches. There is a live device. Evacuate the East Promenade now.
The masked figure raises a hand. The crowd hushes, the way crowds do when any human claims the microphone in a world built of them. "We return the land," the figure intones. "We
return to living," Laila cuts over, merciless. Leave or die for someone else's clip. It's cruel, it works. Security sweeps in, not Adnan's men, not the woman's. City officers in blue with tired eyes and stubbed beards. They form a cordon that looks more like a hug and less like a trap. The figure's head snaps, recalculating narrative. Panic is a better co-star than kindness, but kindness is stubborn. Samir steps onto the van roof like he's boarding a train. He doesn't grapple. He speaks into the masked ear, a whisper that sounds like a man naming a father in a different town. The figure stiffens, the arm lowers. The det cord surrenders the roof, and the morning lets go of one more headline.
By the time the sun crests, evacuate dims to pause. The city stands, some mirrors do not. The Red Sea lays its palm on concrete and waits.
They slump in the van's shade, lungs renegotiating air. Tariq tips water into his mouth, and most of it lands on his shirt. Laila's inbox blinks with a single word from an unknown, "enough." Then a second, "for now." They are not finished, neither are we. "Out," Samir says softly, "out of the city, for a day. We write the long piece, we buy Huda a lawyer, we find Youssef a bus ticket, we sleep with one shoe on. Then we come back," Laila says, "because the audit will need a shadow."
As they pull away from the arches, Adnan steps from behind a pillar where he's been watching the physics of people. He doesn't wave, he doesn't threaten. He simply calls after them in a voice pitched to reach and not stick.
"Coffee at noon," he says, "neutral ground." "Noon tomorrow," Laila says without turning. "We're busy surviving today." Truth stands this morning, not forever, long enough.
They merge into the street where vans carry bread and men carry tools, and a cat carries nothing but its own arrogance. The laundrette is behind them. The desert is ahead. The story breathes. Then Tariq's phone vibrates with a system alert that isn't his. Audit panel suspended. Under it, a subject line from a ministry address, replacement with internal review, confidential.
"They're already swapping judges," he says. "Good," Laila says, eyes on the road. "We needed a Chapter 10. Chapter 10, The Cost of Names."
The van hums east, away from mirrors and speeches. Heat climbs. Sand arranges itself into small arguments with the road. Suspended glows on Tariq's phone like a verdict written too early.
"They blink," Samir says. "Of course they blink. Then we unblink them. We learn their names again. We put weight on each letter until it stops wriggling. 2 tracks, Laila says. We harden the story for courts, and we stage one last move where optics can't be massaged. Staging moves is their hobby, Tariq says. We do facts. Facts in a place they can't curate, she replies. We take the receipts to the only mirror we trust. A low ridge rises ahead, basalt shoulders dotted with scrub. On the far side, the desert drops to a salt flat. An old microwave tower leans there, bird-nested cables and a rusted dish still pointed at a sky that doesn't remember it. In the tower's shadow, a caravan, canvas patched, wheels tired, generator muttering like an old smoker. My uncle's, the woman says from the driver's seat, eyes on the horizon. He sold bandwidth back when pirates were more honest. You're helping, Samir says, no question mark. I'm preventing stupidity, she answers. They'll try to bait you back into their building. You'll look good. The footage will not. Use this instead.
They haul the cores, the ledger half, the print packs, the drive clones onto a narrow table inside the caravan. The air smells of canvas, oil, and long waits. The dish outside squeals when Tariq coaxes its motor. Then it locks on with a stubborn click.
Signal clean, Tariq says. We can push live HD for an hour before the generator begs. Battery backups for 20 more. After that, we're smoke signals. Line in the sand, Laila says. We go now, no cuts, no edits. Samir sits on a metal chest, shoulder bandage bright. Once we start, phones will appear. Cars too. Names aren't cheap. Good. Let them come to the desert. Let the ground ask its questions.
Laila faces the lens in the cramped heat. The Red Sea glints miles away, a blade under sunlight.
This is a live broadcast from outside the city, she begins. No podium, no edits. We'll show you the chain. She stacks the story like stone. Karst map, moved pins, logs with AS, Huda's memo, the birdlight hijack to evacuate, the manifold fight, the ledger, the attempt to force a second collapse, the press room theater, the non-bomb in the ceiling, the audit's sudden suspension. She holds up BH-19 like a relic. She sets the risk pack sign-in under the lens so the camera drinks the ink. We name Adnan Shah for authorizations tied to suppression, she says. We name the holding company's risk committee for accepting public assurance over void mitigation. We name Geocore for drafting a presentation that moved truth 40 meters north.
Her phone buzzes with legal threats disguised as invitations. Defamation notice, urgent correction request, meet for clarification. She doesn't look down.
And we name the people who stopped a second collapse, she says, voice lower. An operator who saved her logs, a field tech who split a ledger in a sump, an engineer who welded a wrench to a box because his gauges told him to. Give the story feet as well as teeth. Engines growl outside. Dust plumes. 2 SUVs and a sand-beaten Land Cruiser crest the ridge and idle at the flat's edge, silhouettes sharp against heat shimmer. The woman tilts the caravan's shade. They found their way without an invite. Keep rolling, Laila says. Adnan Shah steps down from the cruiser. Jacket off now. Sleeves rolled to forearms like he means to touch tools. 2 others exit the SUVs, men who smell of internal review and smoother outcomes. The woman walks out to meet them with the posture of a toll booth. We will inspect the materials, one man says. Paper waves, chain of custody. No, the woman says pleasantly. You will sit in the shade and drink warm water while the desert watches you fail at being larger than sunlight.
Laila holds up the ledger half.
This ledger records a call at 2104, moving pins for deck, she says. We invite anyone named in it to deny on camera that this happened. We have the voice memo too, anonymized. It will be handed to the independent audit the governor promised before he suspended it. Tariq overlays the names and timestamps live. The caravan's little switcher hums, happy to be necessary again. Samir peers through canvas. More cars, he murmurs. Not theirs. He smiles without humor. Journalists bless the smell of dying exclusivity.
Adnan approaches the shade line but does not cross.
You built a stage. I respect craftsmanship, he calls, but you're trading due process for audience. We built a record you can't edit, Laila replies. Due process ignored due geology. I'll sign your audit demand, he says, on camera, now. We bring in a panel from outside. We lock down every archive. He pauses when the woman steps into his space, something like fond irritation in his eyes. We don't suspend again. He is offering a rope. Decide whether to climb or refuse to be tied. Name the suspension's author, Laila says. On camera, he almost laughs. You want a throat for your necklace. I want accountability with nouns, she says.
He glances at the men from the SUVs. One looks away, the other checks his phone and finds no help there. Adnan faces the lens.
The audit was suspended by Minister Al-Kharaiji's office, he says. At my urging, incorrectly, he inhales. I urge its reinstatement. Tariq looks up, eyes wide. He said it. Archive the moment in 5 mirrors. File it where weather can't erase it.
Phones ring like cicadas. The men from internal review want to hustle him backward, but the woman blocks with a smile that shows all her non-teeth. No edits, she says. He finally said something you can keep.
Sign, Laila says, holding out a printed audit reinstatement request. Tariq has conjured from a template he keeps for emergencies he refuses to describe. Name, time, GPS. Adnan signs. The pen clicks like a starting pistol. It's a lever. Pull gently. Pull again.
The masked feed tries one more time. Phones in the caravans ding with a new push. Dawn is ours. The video shows a van near the East Arches from an hour ago, the one Samir climbed, and an overlay countdown, fraud neat. Tariq overlays it with recorded in red. The thread underneath fills with comments calling the bluff. Momentum deserts the masked sermon mid-sentence.
Time to close, Samir says softly, before the caravan turns into a courthouse. Laila faces the lens. We will deliver all materials to an independent panel with international participation, she says. Huda and other staff are under protection. Any attempt to intimidate them will be published in full with names. She lifts BH19 one last time. The ground keeps receipts, so do we.
Tariq cuts the live. The dish hum drops to a contented purr. Heat leans on the canvas like a large animal.
Adnan stands in the doorway, one hand on the frame, eyes on the core, not the camera. You understand that some of them cannot go to prison, he says. They will break the trial to break the city. Then the city learns to be unbreakable, Laila says, with smaller ambitions and stronger foundations. Smaller ambitions aren't funded, he says. They are lived, she says.
He inclines his head as if conceding a chess exchange he didn't see in time. Coffee tomorrow, he says out of habit rather than hope.
After the first subpoenas land, she says. It's not over, it's not even safe, but something has moved that won't return to its mark politely. The woman pockets the signed request. I'll courier this where couriers still fear me, she says. Pack, you disappear until someone else goes on camera. Youssef first, Laila says. Bus lawyer, money that doesn't smell. Done, the woman says.
They strip the caravan clean of fingerprints and hope. The dish tilts down to sleep. The generator coughs and forgets its rhythm. Wind skitters salt across the flat like handwriting nobody will read.
They roll north on a ribbon of tarmac that forgets to be straight. Tariq slumps against the glass, awake inside, tired. Samir watches the mirror and the sky in equal shares. The woman drives until dunes replace cranes. In Laila's head, the sentences align like scaffolding, short then long, noun then verb, stone then breath. Present tense, because the story is still happening and admits no past yet.
Her phone buzzes. A message from Huda. They came. They asked. I poured tea until they left. Your voice was on TV. My mother cried. Another from an unknown number with a governor's office suffix. Audit reinstated. Public at noon.
Neutral ground, Tariq asks.
Ground, at least, Laila says. We'll make it neutral.
The proofs live in mirrors, in clouds, in bags, in pockets, in people. The city breathes shallow but steady. The sea does not vote today.
They crest a rise where the desert finally looks like itself. No glass, no slogans, only distances that don't lie. Laila opens her notebook and writes the first line of the long piece, the one that will outlast press rooms and hashtags. The ground keeps receipts, and tonight we learned how to read them out loud. Epilogue, mirrors after dawn.
Morning in the desert is never silent. It clicks and sighs, metal cooling, insects scratching, the low hum of wind across salt. After nights like theirs, silence would feel dishonest anyway. The van pulls into a roadside cafe 2 hours north, the kind that serves tea too strong and bread that pretends to be fresh. Tariq plugs his laptop into a cracked socket and watches mirrors around the world fill with their story. Nairobi runs a headline, "The Lines Fracture." Madrid follows with engineering fraud in the desert city. The Karachi blogger simply posts, "The ground kept the receipt." Samir sits with his back to the wall, left hand over his shoulder wound. He stares at a group of drivers haggling over diesel outside. Their noise is ordinary. He doesn't remember what ordinary sounded like until now. They are alive. Proof is alive. That's the only currency that matters.
On the cafe's TV, the governor speaks to a subdued press corps. His voice is low, phrased by lawyers, punctuated by promises. Behind him, Adnan Shah stands like a man who has volunteered to be photographed beside earthquakes, expression steady, sleeve rolled down again. On-screen text, audit reinstated, panel international, work suspended.
They bend, Tariq says, chewing stale bread. Not break, but bend enough. They bend until the next budget, Samir mutters. Until the next camera, Laila says, closing her notebook. That's our job, being the next camera.
Her phone lights with messages, journalists asking for quotes, strangers offering thanks, trolls calling her traitor, officials offering safe channels for dialogue. She deletes none of them. Proof earns enemies the same way it earns applause.
We scatter, she says. Samir, Cairo, Tariq, Istanbul, I'll move between. Files split 3 ways, mirrors everywhere. No single point of silence. And coffee tomorrow? Samir asks. Coffee the day after subpoenas, she says. The van leaves the cafe. The desert stretches ahead, not empty, but exact. The line still stands in the south, mirrors glinting like a wounded animal pretending to sleep. Around it, cranes idle, pumps mutter, workers trade rumor for truth. For the first time, the city's face carries more than one story. No system collapses in one night. No lie dies in a single article. But the ground remembers and people remember. And if you speak both together, Sometimes the world listens.
The van disappears into heat shimmer. The screen fades with the words that carried them through the night. The ground keeps receipts. And now, so do we. The end. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends about my listening library.